Chapter 463. Under Genshin's instructions, his identity as the imperial protector of the Qin Empire was not publicly announced. As such, when he became the Qin Empire's imperial protector, he was opposed by some nobles and ministers. However, the voices of opposition were very small. With the king's resolute attitude and the support of Yi Ming and Kaffir, the voices of opposition were quickly suppressed, allowing Genshin to smoothly become the Kingdom of Jessen's imperial protector. At the same time, he was also the only imperial protector of the Kingdom of Jessen. The coronation ceremony of the imperial protector was extremely grand. Practically all of the influential figures of the Kingdom of Jessen came. Not only did the leaders of the other 3 great clans of Lore City come, even many people from cities thousands of miles away came to participate. It was an extremely grand occasion. After this event, Changyang Prefecture's reputation soared, completely suppressing the Huaiyun sect's reputation and faintly showing signs of replacing the Huaiyun sect. Regarding this, Changyangba bitterly smiled countless times, his face filled with helplessness. Right now, Changyang Prefecture could no longer maintain its previous low profile. After the coronation ceremony ended, Jianchen and his family did not stay in the palace for long. They left early the next morning, returning to Lore City under the escort of 500 black-armored soldiers. Jianchen also left the palace with Ming Dong. A beautiful woman in white robes stood out among the group of black-armored soldiers. She was like a beautiful flower blooming in the world. She was so eye-catching and dazzling. The Grand Princess had left the palace at the request of the Kingdom of Jessen's king. She was going to stay in Changyang Prefecture for the time being, saying that she wanted the two of them to cultivate their relationship. Changyangba and Bai Yuntian naturally agreed to this matter. In their hearts, they could not ask for anything more, leaving Jianchen with no other choice. The family proceeded at an unhurried pace, chatting and laughing along the way, filling the air with warmth. Under this unhurried pace, they finally arrived at Lore City at noon the next day. Lore City's city lord, who had long since received the news, led a large group of people to personally welcome them at the city gates. Their faces were filled with respect, and they were incomparably courteous to the people from Changyang Prefecture. After some twists and turns, Genshin's group finally returned to Changyang Prefecture. The 500 black-armored soldiers did not stay for long. After completing their mission, they immediately returned to the palace. Changyang Prefecture was now decorated with lanterns and colored banners, filling the air with a jubilant atmosphere. As soon as Genshin stepped through the gate, he could clearly feel that the current Changyang Prefecture was somewhat different from before. The patrolling guards, servants, and maids shuttling through the residence all had proud expressions on their faces. When they walked, they held their heads high, looking dignified. "Hee, master," fourth madam, "Xiangtian, you're finally back." The higher-ups of Changyang Prefecture had been waiting at the gate for a long time. As soon as they saw Jianchen and the other two enter the residence, they immediately welcomed them with enthusiasm. "I didn't expect that there would be such an outstanding descendant in Changyang Prefecture. This is really the blessing of Changyang Prefecture." An aged voice came from behind. The old man who was guarding the library walked over with a faint smile on his face. His expression was filled with pride and gratification that could not be concealed. Mixed within, there was also a little excitement. "Xiang, this is your great-grandfather. Quickly greet him." Changyangba immediately whispered to Jianchen with a solemn expression. Hearing this, Jianchen did not hesitate at all. He immediately saluted and said, "Greetings, great-grandfather." Great-grandfather chuckled a few times. He came in front of Jianchen and sized him up. He nodded his head and praised, "Not arrogant nor rash. Not bad, not bad. You're indeed a dragon among men. At such a young age, you already have the demeanor of an expert." Jianchen and his family exchanged a few pleasantries with the higher-ups of Chanyang Prefecture before they went to rest. On the way back to the room, all the guards who met Jianqin saluted Jianqin with respect. They looked at Jianqin with eyes full of admiration and jealousy. At this moment, outside the gate of Chanyang Prefecture, a young man in a luxurious red robe had arrived. The young man had long red hair and was about 27 or 28 years old. He had a resolute expression and an extraordinary bearing. At first glance, one could tell that he was not an ordinary person. The young man was stopped by the guards outside the gate of Chanyang Prefecture. One of the guards shouted expressionlessly, "Stop. This is Chanyang Prefecture. No one is allowed to enter without an invitation." The young man stopped at the gate and said calmly, "I'm looking for Chanyang Shoten." "How dare you? How dare you call the fourth young master by his name?" The two guards' expressions changed. They looked at the young man with unfriendly eyes. Now that Chanyang Prefecture's status in the kingdom of Jessen had risen because of Jianqin, these guards had become somewhat arrogant. The young man was not angry. He said calmly, "My name is Dugafeng. Go and report to Chanyang Shoten. If he recognizes me, he will naturally come out." Hearing this, the two guards looked at each other. After communicating with their eyes, their attitudes finally eased. One of the guards said, "Then wait a moment. I'll go and report to the fourth young master." Soon Jianqin, who was chatting with Ming Dong in the room, received the news of Dugufeng's arrival. His face immediately lit up with joy. He immediately walked out of the room with Ming Dong and quickly walked toward the gate of Chanyang Prefecture. Seeing Jianqin in such a hurry, the guard who came to report changed his expression. He could not help but think of his previous attitude toward Jianqin. He was afraid that Jianqin would blame him in his anger. He immediately became uneasy. This was because he knew that the person with the most authority in Chanyang Prefecture was not the head of the family, but the fourth young master in front of him. His words were more effective than anyone else's. Jianqin arrived at the gate of Chanyang Prefecture and saw Dugafeng, who had been separated from him for half a year. Dugafeng was still the same as before. There was no change in him, and his expression was cold. "I didn't misjudge you. You really did come," Jianqin said with a smile. Seeing that the fourth young master of Chanyang Prefecture, Chanyang Shoten, was really the person he was looking for, Dugafeng could not help but smile faintly. He said, "So your name is Chanyang Shoten. No wonder I couldn't find you after searching for so long in Lore City." Jianqin chuckled and did not explain further. He said, "Let's go. Let's go in and talk." Afterwards, Jianqin brought Dugafeng into Chanyang Prefecture. Only when the two of them disappeared through the gate did the two guards at the gate let out a huge sigh of relief. They secretly rejoiced. "I never thought that he would be the fourth young master's friend. Fortunately, we didn't offend him earlier. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to stay in Chanyang Prefecture any longer," one of the guards said with lingering fear. The other guard also nodded in agreement. Jianqin brought Dugafeng into his room and started chatting. From Dugufeng's words, Jianqin learned that Dugafeng had already left the Dugu clan. From now on, he would have nothing to do with the Dugu clan. Some of the things he would do in the future would have nothing to do with the Dugu clan. Dugufeng's actions made Jianqin admire Dugafeng from the bottom of his heart. In his heart, he already faintly regarded Dugafeng as one of his own. Although the two of them had not known each other for long, Jianqin trusted Dugafeng very much in his heart. "That's right. Jianqin, didn't you create a mercenary group? Pull Dugafeng in as well. That way, the strength of our mercenary group will increase a lot," Ming Yuan said. "That's exactly what I was thinking," Jianqin said with a smile. However, his brows immediately furrowed slightly. He said, "I don't know if Doctor and Yunzheng will rush over." "That's simple. Jianqin, didn't you leave the address for Doctor and Yunjing back then? Why don't we just inform the City Lord's Manor and have them investigate the identity of everyone who enters the city. That way, as soon as Doctor and Yunjin arrive in Lore City, we'll receive the news. If they really don't come, then it won't be a waste of our time, Ming Dong suggested. Jianqin's eyes lit up. That's a good idea. Xiao Yu, call assistant butler Suda over for me. After that, Jianqin had assistant butler Su to personally make a trip to the city lord's manor and pass on his instructions to the city lord of Lore City. Assistant butler Su hurried to the city lord's manor after receiving the order, passing on Jianqin's exact words to the city lord. When the city lord of Lore City heard that this matter was personally given to him by the fourth young master of Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Shoten, he immediately became serious. He did not dare to be negligent and personally went to make arrangements. After a few days, Jianqin finally finished dealing with the matters of the kingdom of Jessen and his family. He could finally relax for the time being. At night, Jianqin sat on his bed with his legs crossed. He took out a map from his space ring and looked at it for a while. He murmured softly, "It's time to go take a look at the dwelling left behind by the Saint Ruler. I hope it doesn't disappoint me. A ruler's weapon and a Saint Ruler's skeleton can both help me refine a strand of chaotic force. I wonder how powerful I'll be once I can use chaotic force. I really look forward to it." The next morning, Jianqin bid farewell to Ming Dong and De Gafeng. After bidding farewell to his parents, he left Changyang Prefecture. He flew towards the dwelling marked on the map. Chapter 464. Jianqin traversed the territories of several kingdoms and finally arrived at a mountain with beautiful scenery on the third day. This mountain was extremely vast and towered into the clouds. The upper half of the mountainside was completely hidden in the boundless sea of clouds. This mountain was obviously not as ordinary as it looked on the surface. The yuan qi in the mountain was very rich, 2 or 3 times stronger than outside. If one abandoned the demon core, this would be a good place to cultivate and achieve twice the results with half the effort. Jianqin floated about 100 meters above the mountainside and looked around. From time to time, he would look at the map in his hand to find the exact location of the Sage Monarch Cave. After a few breaths, Jianqin sighed in disappointment. Although the map indicated that the Sage Monarch Cave was in this mountain, it was not very detailed. It was impossible to find the exact location of the Sage Monarch Cave from the map. Jianqin looked at the rough terrain marked on the map again. After memorizing it in his mind, he put away the map and controlled the wind element to wrap his body and continued to fly into the depths of the mountain. At the same time, he spread out his divine sense to cover a radius of 15 kilometers. He observed every secret place in all directions and did not miss any clues. Soon, Jianqin arrived at the depths of the mountain. Suddenly, Jianqin's eyes narrowed. He saw a building in front of him. There were about 100 wooden houses scattered in a circle around a 50-meter-tall tower. On the tower, 3 bold and powerful words could be faintly seen. "Pure Heart Pavilion." There is actually a sect hidden in the depths of this mountain. Jianqin was very surprised. He immediately flew towards the building. Just as Jianqin approached the Pure Heart Pavilion, an old voice slowly rang out from the sky. "A guest has come from afar, so it's no surprise. Disciples of the Pure Heart Pavilion, why don't you come out and receive the guest?" As soon as the voice fell, the tightly shut wooden houses opened one after another. People wearing various kinds of clothes walked out of the houses. There were big and small men and women. Each one of them had a calm expression and a smile on their face. Their bodies emitted an otherworldly aura. At the same time, an old man in a white robe flew out from the top of the tower. The old man had white hair and a youthful complexion. He had the demeanor of a transcendent being, as if he was a master of the Tao. Jianqin stopped at a distance of 500 meters from the group. He stared at the group of people in front of him with a puzzled expression, not knowing what they were up to. His divine sense had already enveloped the entire Pure Heart Pavilion's encampment. Under the cover of Genshin's divine sense, they did not conceal their strength in the slightest and were completely exposed to him. There were not a lot of people in the Pure Heart Pavilion, only around 60 people in total. Other than the ruddy old man, there was a Heaven Saint Master hidden in the crowd as well. Of the other 60 or so people, half of them were Earth Saint Masters. The remaining half were below Earth Saint Master. Since you've come from afar, you're a guest. If you don't mind, please come to my Pure Heart Pavilion, the old man said to Genshin with a smile. Genshin chuckled. We've never met before, so you don't know whether I'm a good person or a bad person. Do you really trust me that much by letting me in as soon as we meet? The old man chuckled and stroked his long beard. The Pure Heart Pavilion's Pure Heart Pavilion, as its name implies, purifies one's heart of desires. As a result, my Pure Heart Pavilion is penniless. We're not as wealthy as the sects outside, so there's no need for people to covet us. On the other hand, the disciples of my Pure Heart Pavilion cultivate wholeheartedly, so we have no enemies. You're worrying too much. A sliver of surprise flashed through Genshin's eyes when he heard that. He had stayed on the Tianyuan continent for so long and had seen all sorts of people, but he had never seen a purified person. If that's the case, then I'll have to trouble you. Genshin did not decline. He clasped his hands and thanked the old man before entering the Pure Heart Pavilion. Under the observation of the senses of Genshin's soul, the Pure Heart Pavilion had no secrets at all. However, the result surprised Genshin a little because the Pure Heart Pavilion was just as the old man had said. It could be described as penniless. Including the old man, the several dozen disciples of the Pure Heart Pavilion did not wear anything like a space ring or space belt. There were no monster cores, no delicacies, no priceless jadeite, and not even the most basic grain. Moreover, Genshin seemed to truly see a lack of desires in the disciples of the Pure Heart Pavilion. All of them naturally possessed an otherworldly presence. Genshin found it rather unbelievable after learning all of this. He felt like he had arrived in a completely different world. Genshin followed the old man into the tower. The only thing that greeted Genshin was a cup of spring water from the mountains. Old man, Tian Shuzi, is the pavilion master of the Pure Heart Pavilion. It's truly unbelievable that you have reached such a level of strength at such a young age. Tian Shuzi sighed emotionally. Can you tell my age? Genshin was greatly surprised. On the Tianyuan continent, one's appearance was not a measure of age. Unless one knew his background, no one would truly believe that such a young Heaven Saint Master was only as old as he appeared to be. This was because there were many ways to restore one's youth on the Tianyuan continent. Tian Shuzi nodded. He stroked his long beard with his right hand and slowly said, Because my Pure Heart Pavilion cultivates the mysteries of the books, we can clearly see the origin of everything. As a result, old man can tell your age with a single glance. You are definitely not over 25 years old. This time, Genshin was truly surprised. His gaze toward Tian Shuzi changed slightly. He praised, Looks like the cultivation books of your esteemed sect are truly profound. The old man chuckled and said, Of course. The art of tranquility is indeed very profound. It allows one to see the origin of everything. However, the number of people who can cultivate the art of tranquility can be counted on one hand. The Pavilion of Tranquility has existed in these mountains for thousands of years. This generation can be considered the generation with the most disciples, but there are only around 80. The other 20 disciples are all outside looking for suitable people to cultivate the art of tranquility. Sigh. There are just far too few people in the world who are suitable for cultivating the Pure Heart technique. This is because cultivating the Pure Heart technique requires one to be free of desires, or the technique will regress instead of improving. At the same time, people who cultivate the Pure Heart technique progress at a much slower rate than those outside. Firstly, this is because we pay more attention to the cultivation of our minds. Secondly, we cannot absorb the energy within monster cores. We can only absorb the pure energy of the world to slowly accumulate energy. As a result, our rate of improvement cannot be compared to those outside. Looks like the heavens are fair. Since the pure heart technique has such a wondrous ability, it makes sense for it to have such restrictions, Jianchen said emotionally. This was the first time he had heard of such a strange cultivation method. Brother, I don't think you've come all the way here for no reason. May I ask why you've come to these mountains? Tian Shuzi asked. Jianchen sat up straight and stared into Tian Shuzi's eyes with shining eyes. He pretended to ask casually, Old sir, you've stayed in these mountains for quite some time, so I'm sure you know the environment here like the back of your hand. Do you know if there's anything strange about these mountains? Tian Shuzi smiled at Jianchen and said, The strange place you're talking about is the dwelling left behind by a saint ruler. A gleam of light flashed through Jianchen's eyes. He clasped his hands together and smiled. Old sir really does have godlike foresight. You've actually guessed correctly. No, it's not that old man has godlike foresight. But if there's a strange place in these mountains, it would be the dwelling of a saint ruler. Tian Shuzi paused for a moment before continuing. The dwelling left behind by that senior is extremely well hidden. He even used the mysteries of the world to cast down a powerful illusory formation outside, hiding the dwelling's location. It's very difficult for anyone below Saint Ruler to discover it, and the strength of the illusory formation is not something they can break through. 100 years ago, Old Man entered the dwelling to pay a visit to this deceased senior. That senior's body has already been reduced to bones, and he has passed away a very long time ago. Old Sir has entered the dwelling before. Jianchen's expression changed, and he became rather nervous. He was most concerned about the Saint Ruler skeleton. Old Man's calming mantra allows him to see through the source. Although the illusory formation cast down by that senior is powerful, it's completely useless to Old Man. He can enter it after spending some effort, but Old Man has never even touched what's inside. Those who practice the calming mantra cannot be tempted by external objects. No matter how precious a treasure is, he has to treat it like normal sand and stone. Jianchen let out a sigh of relief and said, May I ask if Senior can tell me where the dwelling is? It's beneath a huge valley 50 kilometers to the south. Tian Shuzi did not hide anything and told Jianchen the location of the dwelling. Thank you for telling me, old sir, Jianchen said gratefully. There's no need for that. Even if Old Man did not tell you, you would be able to find it with your own abilities after spending some time. However, there's a powerful illusory formation outside the dwelling. It's basically impossible for anyone below Saint Ruler to enter, said Tian Shuzi. I understand. Old sir, I still have matters to attend to, so I'll be taking my leave first. Jianchen lost his patience after learning the location of the dwelling. He left the Pure Heart Pavilion after bidding farewell to Tian Shuzi. Chapter 465. Following Tian Shuzi's directions, Jianchen flew 25 kilometers to the south. As expected, he found a huge gorge. It was so deep that he could not see the bottom. Jianchen floated in the air and slowly descended to the bottom of the gorge. According to Tian Shuzi, the Sage King's dwelling was located at the bottom of the gorge. It was very well hidden and would be very difficult to find. Very soon, Jianchen arrived at the bottom of the gorge. There was a huge pool of water at the bottom of the gorge. It emitted an intense chill that was bone-chilling. The chill assaulted his body, making him feel like he was being cut by a knife. Jianchen scanned his surroundings. It was very dark and the visibility was very low. However, it did not affect Jianchen much. He could clearly see his surroundings. The bottom of the gorge was very large. He could not see the end of it. The entire bottom of the gorge was covered by the pool of water. There was no place to stand. This is already the bottom of the gorge. I wonder where the Sage King's dwelling is. Jianchen mumbled to himself. He knew nothing about the Sage King's dwelling other than its name. He did not even know what it looked like. Coupled with the fact that it was very well hidden, it would be even more difficult to find it. Jianchen released his spiritual sense at full strength, covering a radius of 15 kilometers. He did not even miss the bottom of the water. He carefully observed his surroundings, not missing a single spot. Jianchen flew along the cliff face, sticking close to the surface of the water as he slowly flew at a low altitude. Wherever he passed by, the senses of his soul would be inspected time and time again. He searched extremely carefully. Even the slightest pulse of energy would not be able to escape his senses as long as it was within the range of Jianchen's soul. Splash! The water below Jianchen suddenly exploded. An anaconda, as thick as a water tank, leapt out of the water. It opened its bloody mouth and bit at Jianchen with lightning speed. It was very sudden. Jianchen frowned slightly. He had already discovered the anaconda hiding in the water, but he was currently focused on finding the Sage King's dwelling. He was not in the mood to care about anything else. He was very unhappy with the anaconda's disturbance. A cold light flashed through Jianchen's eyes. He snorted and grabbed the air. The fire element in the surroundings immediately surged wildly, gathering towards Jianchen's hand at an unbelievable speed. In the blink of an eye, it condensed into a sort of fire element that radiated with intense heat. It then turned into a streak of red light and shot towards the anaconda below at an even faster speed. The sword of fire element directly shot into the anaconda's wide-open mouth and exploded 7 inches from the anaconda's body. The giant serpent's body was blown to pieces. Waves of fire spread out from the giant serpent's body, dispersing the cold air in the surrounding space, making the originally cold space warm up, making people feel comfortable. With a thought from Jianchen, a sparkling crystal about the size of a fist flew out of the cold pond and landed in Jianchen's hand. This was a Class 5 monster core. Although it was not as precious to Jianchen as before, its value was still considerable. Jianchen continued to shrink at the bottom of the valley. His body was only 20 meters away from the surface of the water. The cold air rising from the surface of the water had already eroded Jianchen's dry clothes, causing them to become wet. Although the bottom of the canyon was very large, Jianchen only spent 2 hours to collect the entire bottom of the canyon. However, he was disappointed that he did not find anything. He did not find the location of the Sage King's cave. Jianchen floated in the air and pondered. Suddenly, his gaze fell on the pond below, and he muttered, "Could it be under the pond?" Thinking of this, Jianchen did not hesitate and immediately dove into the water. Just as Jianchen's body approached the water surface, the calm water surface silently separated into 2 sides, forming a crack in the vacuum zone. Jianchen's body directly fell into the crack and quickly sank down. Wherever his body passed, the surrounding water would separate to the 2 sides, not contaminating Jianchen's body. As a result, an oval-shaped vacuum zone formed around Jianchen's body. The bottom of the pond was not deep, only around 500 meters. Jianchen arrived at the bottom of the pond very quickly. The temperature at the bottom of the pond was much lower than the surface of the water, causing Jianchen to involuntarily shiver. It was impossible for anyone below the level of Earth Saint Master to survive here. Just the cold air was enough to threaten their lives. The bottom of the pond was pitch black, so dark that he could not even see his own fingers. However, Jianchen had the help of the senses of his soul, so the darkness did not affect him at all. Afterwards, Jianchen slowly moved forward at the bottom of the pond, using the senses of his soul to search every inch of the place. Although Jianchen's senses could cover the bottom of the pond, the water here was very strange. Not only was it extremely cold, it could also weaken Jianchen's senses. As a result, Jianchen could not guarantee that he could accurately see the situation at the bottom of the pond from above. There were many different kinds of creatures living in the pond, but the strongest among them were only Class 5 magical beasts. They posed no threat to Jianchen at all. Another 2 hours passed. Jianchen had already searched through the bottom of the pool, but to his disappointment, he still did not find anything. He did not even find a single trace of his body. Jianchen rushed out of the pond and hovered above the surface of the water that emitted a bone-chilling coldness. His brows were tightly knitted together. He originally thought that with the coverage of his soul, nothing would be able to escape his senses. He would definitely be able to easily find the Saint Ruler's dwelling. However, after searching for a while, Jianchen suddenly realized that the Saint Ruler's dwelling was much better hidden than he had imagined. Tian Shuzi clearly said that the Saint Ruler's dwelling was at the bottom of the canyon. Why haven't I found anything after searching everywhere? Jianchen muttered to himself with furrowed brows, thinking bitterly. Could it be that Tian Shuzi lied to me and the Saint Ruler's dwelling is not here? Or could it be that there's more to the canyon and I've come to the wrong place? Jianchen's body suddenly shot up into the sky like an arrow. In an instant, he had flown out of the canyon and circled around to see if there was a second canyon. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Jianchen had returned. He had searched every inch of the surrounding 20 kilometers, but there was only one canyon. There was no second one. Jianchen returned to the bottom of the canyon and hovered above the surface of the pond, thinking bitterly. The Saint Ruler's dwelling was just too hidden. He had not found anything at all. He even began to wonder if the Saint Ruler's dwelling was even here. Master, Ziying knows where the Saint Ruler's dwelling is. Suddenly, a voice sounded in Jianchen's mind. The azure and purple sword spirits responded to Jianchen's distress and took the initiative to speak. Hearing this, Jianchen was overjoyed. He immediately used his consciousness to communicate with the azure and purple sword spirits. Ziying, you can find the Saint Ruler's dwelling. Yes, Master. The Saint Ruler's dwelling is isolated by a layer of formation. Master's soul is still too weak, so it is impossible for you to find the Saint Ruler's dwelling. Ziying said. Chapter 466. Ziying, tell me where the Holy King's abode is. Jianchen could not hide his excitement. He could not wait. Master, it's 50 meters behind you on the cliff, Ziying said. Jianchen immediately turned around and went to the location Ziying had told him. It was a cliff with some weeds. It looked very ordinary, and there was nothing special about it. Even Jianchen's mind could not sense anything strange. Master, this is a cave covered by a formation. You need to attack this direction and break the formation to see where the cave is, Ziying said. Jianchen looked curiously at the seemingly ordinary cliff in front of him. It was hard for him to imagine that a formation could create such a miraculous effect. With his eyesight, he could not see any flaws. Even his mind could not detect anything strange. Jianchen grabbed at the air, and the fire element in the air quickly gathered. In an instant, it condensed into a fire elemental sword in Jianchen's hand. With a shake of his hand, the fire elemental sword turned into a red light and shot toward the cliff in front of him. Boom! With a loud boom, the fire elemental sword hit the cliff in front of him and exploded. Waves of fire rolled out in all directions, causing the surrounding temperature to rise rapidly. The ice that filled the surroundings was completely dispelled. A large number of broken rocks rolled down and fell into the cold pool below, creating a large splash. When everything calmed down, Jianchen saw a 3-meter-wide cave in front of him. The cave was pitch black, and he could not see what was inside. Is this the entrance to the Holy King's abode? Jianchen stared at the cave and murmured. He immediately used his mind to extend into the cave to see what was inside. However, when his mind was only 50 meters in, it was blocked by an invisible force. It could not go any further. Master, there is a formation protecting it. Ziying's voice sounded in Jianchen's head. The arrangements are really tight. Jianchen sighed. Back then, when he participated in the mercenary conference, he found a Saint King's cave in another space, but its defensive power was far from as strong as this cave. It only used a very thick stone door to block it. The sage monarch abode had an irresistible allure for Jianqin. Without hesitation, Jianqin immediately flew into the pitch-black cave and walked inside. Soon, Jianqin arrived in front of the array that isolated his divine sense. He grabbed the void and condensed a fire elemental sword and shot it out. However, what happened next left Jianqin dumbfounded. Just as the fire elemental sword approached the array, it silently disappeared. Master, this is a formation set up using the power of space. Unless the strength of the attack can reach the limit of this formation, it cannot be broken by external forces. A woman's voice sounded in Jianqin's mind. This time, it was Qing Sua's sword spirit who spoke. Then what should I do? Jianqin asked the sword spirits. This was the first time he had seen a formation, and he had never even heard of it before. As a result, Jianqin was still rather unfamiliar with formations. He had no idea how to deal with it. Now that he had encountered it, he could not help but feel like he had no idea where to start. This formation mainly relies on the power of space. With the support of the force of the world, it changes many times and can create countless illusions to confuse people. However, it does not possess any offensive power, so unless you encounter Saint King, this formation will isolate anyone who enters, Qing Sua explained. Jianqin hesitated before asking, Qing Sua, do you have a way to deal with this formation? Master, although Qing Sua and Xing have expended too much energy and are unable to break through this formation, Qing Sua and Xing can see through it. As long as you follow our instructions, you'll definitely be able to pass through it easily, Qing Sua said in a rather complacent manner. All right then, I'll follow your arrangements. Jianqin could only place all his hopes on the sword spirits, now that things had developed to this point. Master, enter the formation first. Qing Sua instructed Jianqin through Jianqin's mind. Jianqin was extremely confident in Xing and Qing Sua. He was not worried that they would harm him at all. Without any hesitation, he entered the formation that could isolate the senses of the soul. With a single step, he seemed to pass through two different worlds. The scenery before Jianqin drastically changed. He discovered that he had actually arrived in a desert. The scorching sun hung high in the sky, radiating with intense heat. The fine sand in the desert was scorching hot, like iron sand that had been burned to a bright red color. Master, this is all an illusion. It's an illusion created by the person who cast down this formation using the force of the world. It's not real. Continue with your normal pace. Don't go too fast, Qing Sua explained in Jianqin's mind. Jianqin obeyed and continued with his normal pace. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Just as Jianqin took his 4th step, the sand beneath his feet suddenly began to flow, forming a whirlpool that swallowed him up. Quicksand! Jianqin was shocked. Just as he subconsciously wanted to control the qi of heaven and earth to fly out, the voices of Xing and Qing Sua sounded in his mind. Master, don't resist. Otherwise, you will be sent outside by the power of space. Xing and Qing Sua said at the same time. Hearing this, Jianqin immediately gave up resisting and allowed the quicksand to wrap around his body and sink down. It was dark underground. Even with Jianqin's eyesight, he could not see anything clearly. Jianqin simply closed his eyes and did not look at the surrounding scenery. He tried to use his soul, but found that his soul was completely suppressed here. He could not send it out at all. Not long after, Jianqin felt his body stop sinking. At the same time, his body was being squeezed by a thick layer of something. It felt as if he was really being wrapped in quicksand. Master, take a step to the left. Jianqin silently closed his eyes, adjusted the angle of his body, and took a step to the left. This step seemed to cross thousands of miles and come to another place. Jianqin's eyes were closed, but he could clearly feel a glaring light shooting at him. Moreover, there was a faint fragrance of flowers in the air. Jianchen opened his eyes and found himself in a beautiful garden. The scenery was indescribably beautiful. It was like a paradise on earth. The air was filled with a faint fragrance. Not far ahead there was a pool. The water was clear, and he could clearly see the fish swimming in the water. "Master, walk forward." Jianchen lifted his feet and walked forward. He did not stop until he reached the edge of the pool. "Master, this is all an illusion. What you see is not real. There is no pool in front of you. Continue walking forward." What a magical formation. It is so realistic. Jianchen sighed in amazement. He once again sighed in amazement at the magical formation. Afterwards, he directly took a step forward and stepped into the pool. When Jianchen's feet touched the surface of the water, his body actually did not sink. He just floated on the surface of the water. He felt as if there was a layer of transparent glass under his feet. Jianchen continued to walk on the surface of the lake according to the guidance of the sword spirits. When he arrived at the center of the lake, the scenery before him suddenly spun. In an instant, the garden disappeared, and what appeared before Jianchen was a bottomless abyss. The world was gloomy. There was no sun, no moonlight. It was as if he had come to hell on earth. At this moment, Jianchen stood on a cliff. Before him was a bottomless abyss. He could vaguely hear strange sounds from the abyss. It was as if ghosts were howling. It was hair-raising. Continue walking forward. Qing Sua's voice sounded in Jianchen's head. Afterwards, Jianchen followed the sword spirit's instructions. He continuously moved forward in the formation that constantly changed the environment. He would change his position from time to time. Sometimes he would advance, sometimes he would retreat, sometimes he would turn left or right. After tormenting Jianchen for an entire hour, he finally walked out of the mysterious formation. After walking out of the formation, Jianchen found himself in a dark mountain. The surroundings were empty and desolate. There was only a wooden hut. Qing Sua, this isn't another illusion, right? Jianchen asked the sword spirits in his head. Everything in the illusion was too realistic. Jianchen could not tell the difference between reality and illusion. This directly led to Jianchen not being able to tell the difference between reality and illusion. "Master, we've already walked out of the formation. Everything you see now is real," Qing said. Qing's answer finally allowed Jianchen to relax. An excited smile appeared on his face. After going through so much trouble, he was finally going to obtain the final treasure. Jianchen was filled with excitement as he walked step by step toward the wooden hut. Just as Jianchen emerged from the illusion formation, 5 streaks of light flew over with great speed. In the end, they all stopped above the canyon, hovering high in the air as they looked down. Among the 5, there were 4 old men and 1 middle-aged man. They wore clothes of different colors. They all had calm faces and naturally gave off a powerful presence. According to the Heaven Saint Master from the Chang'an Kingdom, the Saint King's dwelling is below the valley. It's on a cliff 50 meters above the pool. There's only one valley nearby. It looks like it's here. The middle-aged man looked down at the valley and said in a low voice, "There's basically no deviation in location. It should be here. Let's go down. I hope the Heaven Saint Master from the Chang'an Kingdom didn't lie to us." The one who spoke was an old man. Chapter 467. "That's true, but we don't know who he wants us to kill," said the old man called Elder Feng. "Who cares? Once we enter the dwelling, we'll go to the kingdom of Jessen. I'm sure we'll be able to find that Heaven Saint Master very quickly." As they spoke, the 5 Heaven Saint Masters had already descended to the bottom of the valley. Very soon, they stopped at a height of 50 meters above the pool of cold water. They looked around. "Look over there, there's a cave." One of the old men pointed in a direction and cried out. Hearing that, the 5 of them all looked over. The king discovered a pitch-black cave about 500 meters in front of them. Could it be there? Let's go take a look. The 5 of them flew toward the cave at the same time and arrived in front of it in the blink of an eye. Dense energy of the world surrounded them as they hovered in the air. Don't you feel that there's a faint trace of fire element in this space? One of the old men asked with a frown. The others nodded in agreement. An old man with fire elemental energy around his body said, "Yes, there's indeed a fire elemental energy floating in the air. Although it is very faint, I can still clearly feel it. It seems that someone has been here not long ago. And the marks around the cave are also newly created. Someone has indeed arrived here before us. There aren't many people who know about the Saint King's dwelling. According to the expert from the Qiangan Kingdom, there's a powerful formation outside the dwelling. If you don't know the exact location, you won't be able to discover the secret of this place. However, the secret of the Saint King's dwelling just happened to be leaked to the expert from the Kingdom of Jessen a few days ago. It looks like the person who arrived here before us is definitely that person. If that's the case, then that's exactly what I want. Since that person is here, we don't need to waste our energy going to the Kingdom of Jessen. Let's just kill him here and fulfill the condition of the expert from the Qiangan Kingdom who told us the secret." "That's great." The 5 of them were not in a hurry to enter. They hovered in the air and conversed. "Since that person is inside, let's wait for him outside. This way, we won't have to waste our energy to break through that powerful array. If he fails, he'll be directly teleported out by the power of space. If he succeeds, he'll still come out. At that time, we'll just kill him and obtain the treasures left behind by the Saint King. It'll save us a lot of energy." Inside the cave, the so-called Saint Monarch's abode was located in a hollowed-out mountainside. The light was dim and the air was humid. Only the dozens of luminous pearls hanging from the ceiling emitted a faint light, providing some weak illumination to the dark mountainside. There were no flowers, grass, or trees in the belly of the mountain. Other than a formation and a wooden house, there was nothing else. From this point, it could be seen that the owner of this cave did not have high requirements for the environment. He was a type of ascetic cultivator. Jianchen arrived before the wooden house and studied it. The wooden house was completely black, completely constructed from ironwood that was as tough as steel. At the same time, he could clearly sense a powerful pulse of energy within the ironwood. It was this energy that allowed the wooden house to remain in this dark and humid dwelling for eternity. It was still in perfect condition even after thousands of years of erosion. Jianchen stared at the wooden house with mixed feelings. He gradually became stern as well. After all, this was a place where a saint ruler had once lived. Although Jianchen was a heaven saint master now, a saint ruler still gave him an extremely large amount of pressure. A heaven saint master comprehending the energy of the world was worlds apart from an earth saint master. On the other hand, saint rulers were supreme existences who had comprehended the mysteries of the world. They could control the mysteries of the world and could even use the force of the world to cast down formations that were difficult to discern. Their strength was countless times greater than a heaven saint master's. The difference between a heaven saint master and a saint ruler was like an earth saint master facing a great saint master. The two were worlds apart and could not be compared at all. Jianchen sucked in a deep breath as he stood in front of the pitch-black house. He slowly calmed his surging emotions before gently placing his hands on the hard, cold door. With a slight push, he slowly pushed it open. With a creak, the door was pushed open, and the scene inside was presented to Jianchen. The first thing that entered his eyes was a wooden table made from ironwood. There was only a single chair in front of the table. From this, it could be seen that there were no other guests other than the owner of the house. A vast, surging energy filled the wooden house. It was condensed and did not disperse. If he did not enter the house, he would not be able to sense the existence of the vast energy. Perhaps it was because of the existence of the energy that the wooden house was extremely clean, without a speck of dust. It was as if someone cleaned it every day. Jianchen entered the wooden house and glanced around. The interior was extremely simple, so simple that it did not seem like a place where a normal person lived. There was nothing else other than a table and a chair. The wooden hut was clearly not a single room. Jianchen was currently in a living room, and there was a door in the corner that led to the inside of the hut. Jianchen gently made his way in. As soon as he pushed open the small door, a surging energy radiated from inside, causing Jianchen's body to sink. It was as if he was carrying a huge boulder on his back. Jianchen felt like he was a small boat in the ocean before the vast energy. He was so insignificant that he could not resist it at all. Jianchen looked over and saw a skeleton that shone with a crystalline light sitting on a bed with its legs crossed. The energy within the skeleton was clearly much more powerful than the one Jianchen had seen in Mercenary City. Just a ripple of energy was enough to make Jianchen feel extremely pressured. I never thought it would only be a skeleton. Looks like he wasn't a ninth heavenly layer saint ruler when he was alive, Jianchen murmured to himself. He was extremely excited inside. Although it was only a skeleton, the energy inside was no weaker than a ruler armament. This was definitely a great harvest for him because he could refine a sliver of chaotic force with the assistance of the sword spirits with this saint ruler skeleton. If this continued, he would be able to use chaotic force with great familiarity one day. Jianchen stared at the pressure from the skeleton and arrived before it. He carefully stowed it away in his space ring. As the skeleton vanished, the pressure and powerful ripples of energy that filled the wooden house completely vanished as well. Jianchen's heart could not help but beat violently after he successfully stowed the skeleton away. He was extremely excited. Whether it was the skeleton of a saint king or a ruler armament, they were both extremely rare and precious items on the Tianyuan continent. They were rarely seen. Just obtaining one would allow a person to reach the heavens in a single step, or even allow a mediocre clan to rapidly develop into a large clan. As for ruler armaments, they were even preserved as the treasures of peak clans. This was more than enough to demonstrate just how precious the skeleton of a saint king was. After all, it was a treasure that would only be left behind when a supreme existence like Saint King passed away. Afterward, Jianchen discovered a silver-white space ring beside the skeleton. There were not many things in the space ring, most of them being collectibles. Jianchen rummaged through the space ring and very soon pulled out an ancient scroll. The scroll was 2 meters long and the paper had yellowed. However, it was extremely well preserved without any damage at all. It was covered in tadpole-sized drawings and a few diagrams of human bodies. Jianchen held his breath as he carefully read the contents. His face was filled with unconcealable excitement. This was actually a heaven tier battle skill, and a mid-heaven tier battle skill at that. The Sky Splitter arts used a special method to use the Saint Force in the body. It compressed the Saint Force in the body and then spewed it out in one go, erupting with a powerful and violent energy to attack the enemy ahead. It had a very wide range and could be controlled by the caster. The Sky Splitter arts was different from the other Heaven tier battle skills Jianchen had seen before. The Heaven tier battle skills that Jianchen had seen before all used Saint weapons as a medium, erupting with powerful energy to attack the enemy. However, the Sky Splitter arts could be used with both hands. Saint Force would erupt from both hands and attack in a wide range according to the caster's will. Moreover, the scroll also stated that if a first cycle Heaven Saint Master were to use the Sky Splitter arts, they could easily destroy a mountain that was several hundred meters tall. From this, it could be seen just how powerful the Sky Splitter arts was. Jianchen excitedly stored the Sky Splitter arts into his space ring. However, he was calculating in his mind that he would definitely let Chang Bo comprehend the Sky Splitter arts as soon as he returned. This was because Chang Bo was the only Heaven Saint Master in Changyang Prefecture. Letting him cultivate the Sky Splitter arts was clearly the most suitable. Moreover, Chang Bo had not only cared about him since he was young, but he had also silently protected Changyang Prefecture all these years. As for the others other than a few familiar people by his side. Genshin did not consider them for the time being. Changyangba was currently still a great Saint Master, so he did not have the ability to learn a Heaven-tier battle skill. This was because the minimum requirement to learn a Heaven-tier battle skill was to be an Earth Saint Master. Chapter 468. Aside from the sky-splitting chant, Genshin also found a Heaven-tier cultivation method in the Space Ring. Although it was also a Heaven-tier cultivation method, it was much more mediocre compared to battle skills. Changyang Prefecture and Kargath Academy each had one. Although that was the case, Genshin didn't mind because a powerful clan definitely wouldn't only have one cultivation method. Although almost everyone could only cultivate one cultivation method and battle skill, to a clan or a force, the more the better. After all, one cultivation method wasn't suitable for everyone. There weren't many valuable items in the Space Ring left behind by the Holy King. There wasn't a single magic core or coin. They must have been left to the Qiangan Kingdom. Apart from a Heaven-tier battle skill and a Heaven-tier cultivation method, nothing else caught Genshin's attention. After putting away the Space Ring, Genshin looked around the wooden house a few more times, but he didn't find anything. He didn't find any hidden compartments or secret passages. However, he discovered that after he put away the Holy King's skeleton, the powerful energy contained in the ironwood was rapidly dissipating. Although this small wooden hut was constructed from extremely sturdy ironwood, it was still unable to last forever in this dark and damp mountainside. Without the support of the Saint King skeleton's energy, once the energy within the ironwood completely dissipated, this ironwood hut that had existed for who knew how many years would also disappear from this world. After that, Genshin wandered around the wooden house again, but he still didn't find anything. He could only leave. Going out was much easier than going in. As soon as Genshin stepped into the formation, he felt a fluctuation in the surrounding space. Then he was directly teleported into the pitch-black passage with a diameter of 3 meters. Genshin took a deep breath and then walked out with a smile on his face. He thought to himself, "The king of the Qiangan Kingdom didn't lie to me. This really is an intact Holy King's abode. Not only did I obtain a Holy King skeleton that contains powerful energy, but there's also a Heaven-tier battle skill and a cultivation method." A light appeared in front of Genshin. Genshin quickly exited the cave that led to the abode and arrived above the cold pond at the bottom of the canyon. However, at this moment, Genshin's expression changed. A sharp light flashed in his eyes, and then a faint cyan light flashed. His body had already moved 5 meters to the side. Whoosh! 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 5 whistles rang out as 5 powerful strands of sword chi shot over from above. They passed through where Genshin had just been standing and shot into the lake below with a thunderous boom, kicking up a huge splash. Genshin's expression became very unsightly. He suddenly looked up and saw that 5 figures had appeared above him at an unknown time. The 5 attacks just now were launched by them. The wind elemental energy around Genshin's body suddenly became stronger. His body shot into the sky like an arrow. "Don't let him escape." One of the 5 people in the sky immediately shouted. The 5 of them immediately formed a circle in the sky and sealed off all of Genshin's escape routes. At the same time, 5 sword chis shot at Genshin. Genshin's eyes shone brightly. 5 fire elemental swords quickly condensed in front of his chest. Then they turned into 5 furious dragons that emitted intense heat and collided with the 5 sword chis. Boom! A violent explosion erupted in the air. The surging energy and waves of fire wreaked havoc in the canyon. The powerful energy waves slammed into the walls on both sides and bounced back. This repeated over and over again, causing the walls to be damaged to the point where countless thick cracks appeared. The entire cliff shook violently. A large number of rocks fell down, falling into the cold pond below. Genshin charged up from the bottom of the cliff. He did not run away like the 5 Heaven Saint Masters thought he would. Instead, he came to the same height as them and floated there. "Who are you?" Gentian asked in a low voice. A strong killing intent flickered in his eyes. His sharp gaze slowly swept past the 5 people. But when Gentian saw the 2 old men among them, his gaze suddenly froze. His eyes revealed an extremely shocked expression. Gentian's mind flashed back to a few years ago outside Wake City. He had accidentally bumped into Huang Wan, who was bathing in the river. The 2 powerful old men that Huang Wan had called Uncle Fong and Uncle Yin. Were they not the 2 people in front of him? Although it had been a few years, Gentian still recognized the 2 of them with a single glance. "It's you. It's actually you." When Gentian saw the 2 elders of wind and cloud, the 2 elders of wind and cloud also recognized him. Their eyes immediately widened, and their faces were filled with disbelief. The 3 people in the surroundings noticed the expressions of the 2 elders of wind and cloud. Someone immediately asked, "Elder Fong, Elder Yin, do you 2 know him?" The 2 elders of wind and cloud acted as if they did not hear the question. Their faces were filled with shock as they stared at the floating Gentian. Their voices trembled as they asked, "Why? Why? You've actually reached the realm of Heaven Saint Master." The 2 elders of wind and cloud's hearts began to churn. The 2 of them were not unfamiliar with Gentian. They had an extremely deep impression of him. Back in Wake City, Gentian, who was only a great saint, had taken advantage of their carelessness to peek at their young Lady Huang Wan bathing. This was also the first time their young Lady Huang Wan's body had been exposed to a boy. Afterwards, when the 2 of them attacked Gentian, they were injured by the azulate sword spirits within Gentian's body, which greatly shocked them. Afterwards, during the mercenary tournament half a year ago, the 2 of them had witnessed Gentian's performance in the ring. At that time, they were extremely shocked. A few years ago, Gentian was only a great saint. They never thought that in just a short 4 to 5 years, he would soar to the realm of Earth Saint Master at an unbelievable speed. This rate of improvement was truly shocking. Furthermore, they had learned from Huang Wan about Gentian's performance in the mercenary tournament. It was said that the Huang family's treasure, the Sun Moon Bow, had almost been taken away by the Shi family. In the end, it was all thanks to Gentian that the Huang family managed to keep the bow. Because of this, Gentian had even offended the powerful Shi family. And now only half a year had passed. Gentian, who had only been a first cycle Earth Saint Master during the mercenary tournament, had suddenly soared to the realm of Heaven Saint Master at an even more terrifying rate. This rate of improvement left the 2 elders of wind and cloud dumbfounded. They found it very difficult to accept. "Elder Fong, Elder Yin, who is he? Do the 2 of you know him?" Another person asked. The 2 elders of wind and cloud took a deep breath and slowly calmed themselves down. Elder Fong said he is Gentian, the Gentian who obtained first place in this year's mercenary tournament. "What? He is Gentian?" Hearing this, the other 3 looked at Gentian in surprise. Their eyes were filled with shock. Those who could participate in the mercenary tournament could not be older than 50 years old. Since Gentian was this year's mercenary king, he was definitely younger than 50 years old. It had only been half a year since the mercenary tournament had ended. In other words, this young man in front of them had become a Heaven Saint Master before the age of 50. Across the entire Tianyuan continent, such a rapid rate of improvement could be considered a peerless genius. "Gentian, why are you here?" Elder Yin asked as he looked at Gentian in surprise. Gentian stared at everyone emotionlessly and coldly said, "I should be the one asking you this. Why are you here? Why did you attack me earlier?" Hearing this, Elder Yin looked at the entrance of the Saint King's dwelling. A gleam of light flashed through his eyes, and he quickly understood the situation. His face immediately sank as he muttered to himself, "I never thought that the person the Heaven Saint Master from the Chang'an Kingdom was talking about was actually Gentian." Although Elder Yen's voice was very soft, Jianqin still heard it clearly. A strong killing intent flashed through his eyes as he asked in a deep voice, "Did Qiangan Yin tell you the location of the Saint King's dwelling?" Yes, it was indeed a Heaven Saint Master from the Qiangan Kingdom who told us about the Saint King's dwelling. In exchange, they told us to take a person's life. The middle-aged man expressionlessly said. His gaze towards Jianqin was cold. Jianqin sneered as his gaze became colder and colder. "I never thought that the Qiangan Kingdom would play this game with me. The person they want you to kill must be me." "Yes," the middle-aged man emotionlessly replied. Jianqin glared at the middle-aged man and said, "Now that I'm here, what are you going to do?" The middle-aged man was furious. He coldly snorted and said, "Since our Huang family has agreed to something, we will definitely do it. No matter who you are, stay here today." "No." The Wind and Cloud brothers' expressions changed as they said, "Jianqin is a great benefactor to our Huang family. If it weren't for him, we wouldn't have been able to keep the Sun Moon Bow. It would have been taken away by the Shi family a long time ago. Moreover, he saved the young Miss' life." "Elder Yin, this is only the young Miss side of the story. We don't know what happened in the trial space, so we can't tell if it's true or not. Who can guarantee that the young Miss is telling the truth?" The middle-aged man righteously countered. "Then Shi Xiangran's death should be true." Elder Feng also opened his mouth. He was clearly on Jianqin's side. "What can Shi Xiangran's death prove? Maybe it's a personal grudge between Jianqin and Shi Xiangran," the middle-aged man argued. The Wind and Cloud brothers glanced at each other as their expressions became extremely ugly. After knowing that the person they wanted to kill was Jianqin, the two of them had already changed their minds. Even if the Huang family's reputation would be damaged, they definitely wouldn't do anything to Jianqin. Not to mention Jianqin's talent, just his kindness to the Huang family was enough for them to do so. Moreover, there was an inexplicable relationship between him and Huang Wan. Chapter 469. At this moment, one of the old men who had been watching from the side said, "Jianqin, you've entered the dwelling. Did you obtain the items inside?" "Yes, everything is with me," Jianqin answered without any hesitation. There was nothing to hide. Although there were 5 Heaven Saint Masters, he did not fear them at all. "Then there's nothing to say. Everyone, let's kill him together. I've fulfilled my promise to someone else. Our Huang family's reputation cannot be tarnished because of us. Otherwise, who will bear the blame if the ancestor blames us?" The middle-aged man shouted in a deep voice. The words "old ancestor" from his mouth caused the expressions of the other 4 people to change. They were clearly extremely fearful of the old ancestor. "That won't do. Our Huang clan is indebted to our little friend Jianqin. If you really do that, the ancestor will definitely blame you. Our Huang clan can't do such an ungrateful thing," Feng Lai said solemnly. Elder Yin also said, "That's right. I'm sure everyone knows how important the Sun Moon Bow is to our Huang family. The ancestor attached great importance to what happened in Mercenary City, and even personally called the young lady over to ask her about it. He must have learned the details from the young lady. If it weren't for Jianqin's help, our Huang family would not have been able to successfully retrieve the Sun Moon Bow. As a result, Jianqin is our benefactor. If you really do something over the line because of the Qiangan Kingdom, our Huang family will become an ungrateful family. The ancestor will definitely not forgive you. Elders Feng and Yin, there's no need to scare me. I've already said before that the young lady's words may not be true," the middle-aged man insisted. He did not back down at all. Elders Huang Junran, Huang, what do you think?" Elder Feng looked at the 2 elders who had spoken up the entire time. The 2 old men pondered for a moment before Elder Huang Junran opened his mouth. "Elder Feng, Elder Yin. What the 3 of you said is not without reason, but the things inside the Sage Monarch Cave are too important to us. We cannot give up. How about this, Genshin? If you hand over the things inside the Sage Monarch cave to our Huang family, we will not make things difficult for you. We don't need too much. We just need the skeleton of a saint ruler. The skeleton of a fifth heavenly layer saint ruler is just far too useful to our ancestor, said Genshin. Elder Huang, he spoke. If they could get the Sage King's skeleton back, the strength of the Huang clan's ancestors would definitely increase by a lot. As for the other things, they were dispensable to the Huang clan. This was because the Huang family had already investigated the identity of the owner of this cave, and there was no treasure that was worthy of their attention. Genshin sneered when he heard what the two of them had said. He said, "You better give up. I will never give you the skeleton of a saint ruler. Genshin, you're really asking for it. Don't think that you can look down on everyone just because you've obtained the title of Mercenary King. To the Huang family, killing you is as easy as crushing an ant," the middle-aged man yelled out. His gaze was extremely sharp. Genshin's face sank and a cold light flickered through his eyes. His sharp gaze was like an unsheathed sword as he viciously stared at the middle-aged man. He coldly said, "Then do you believe that if I, Genshin, want to kill you, it'll be as easy as crushing an ant as well? Bastard, you're looking to die." The middle-aged man's temper was not very good to begin with, so he was enraged by Genshin's words. He immediately drew his saint weapon and charged at Genshin. Genshin grabbed at the air, and a fire elemental sword instantly formed. With a wave of his hand, the fire elemental sword shot toward the middle-aged man as a fiery red streak of light. The middle-aged man yelled out and swung his saint weapon at the fire elemental sword with surging energy. With a loud explosion, the fire elemental sword was shattered by the middle-aged man, turning into waves of fire that wreaked havoc in the surroundings, dyeing the sky red. The middle-aged man did not slow down at all. He passed through the sea of fire with a barrier of saint force around him, arriving before Genshin in the blink of an eye. The huge sword in his hand stabbed toward Genshin's chest mercilessly. A dense layer of violet and azure light appeared in Genshin's right hand, forming a 4-foot-long streak of light. Genshin stabbed out with the origin energy of the sword spirits, colliding with the middle-aged man's sword in the air. With a soft sound, the tip of the middle-aged man's sword shattered, and a thumb-sized fragment fell from the sky. The middle-aged man's expression drastically changed when he saw his saint weapon being damaged. He spat out a mouthful of blood as his body flew back in a horrible shape. He stared at Genshin in shock as disbelief filled his face. The other 4 people had clearly witnessed the battle between the two of them. The shattered tip of the middle-aged man's sword made their hearts thump uncontrollably. They stared at the azure and violet light in Genshin's hand in shock. None of them knew what kind of power it was. The middle-aged man retreated 30 meters before stabilizing himself. He stared at the azure and violet light in Genshin's hand with a pale face. He involuntarily cried out, "What kind of power is that? It's actually so powerful." Genshin emotionlessly stared at the middle-aged man and coldly said, "Reality has proven that if I wanted to kill you, it would be as easy as crushing an ant. Now, do you still want to take the Saint Ruler's skeleton from my hands?" The middle-aged man had humiliated Genshin before. Although he was a member of the Huang family, Genshin would not let him go so easily. The middle-aged man's face alternated between green and white. He stared at Genshin with a venomous gaze as he furiously said, "The Saint Ruler's skeleton is of great use to my ancestor. We cannot give it up. Elders, let's work together and kill him." Elder Huang Junran and Elder Huang, he both hesitated. Before, they had indeed not taken Genshin seriously. Although Genshin was a heaven saint master, he was not a threat to the Huang family at all. However, ever since they had witnessed the power of Genshin's sword spirits, they had no choice but to view Genshin in a new light. The sword spirit's origin energy could easily destroy a Heaven Saint Master's saint weapon. This was a fatal threat to Heaven Saint Masters. Genshin held such great power in his hands. If they offended him, he would definitely become an extremely terrifying enemy. Elders, what are you still hesitating for? Don't you know just how important the Saint Ruler's skeleton is to our ancestor? The middle-aged man urged. He was alone and no longer dared to fight with Genshin. He was extremely fearful of the sword spirit's origin energy. Elder Yen, I think we should go back and discuss this matter with our ancestor. Elders Feng and Yun are right. Genshin has done our Huang family a favor. We definitely cannot do such a despicable thing. Elder Huang Junran said, expressing that he did not want to become enemies with Genshin. Yes, that's right. I also have the same idea. Elder Huang, he also expressed his opinion. The middle-aged man called Elder Yen looked at the two elders in disbelief. He quickly understood why the two elders had suddenly changed their minds. He immediately gnashed his teeth in hatred. He was extremely unwilling. If the two elders worked together with him, the three of them had the confidence to contend against Genshin. However, if they did not join, he would not be able to defeat Genshin alone. He would only be asking for trouble. Genshin, I, Yen Lai, will remember you, the middle-aged man said while gnashing his teeth. After throwing down these words, he did not greet the other four elders and turned to leave. Elder Huang Junran and Elder Huang Huang also left without saying a word. Only Elder Feng and Elder Yun were left behind. Elders Feng and Yun looked at Genshin with extremely complicated gazes. Elder Feng said, Genshin, ever since returning from the mercenary tournament, the young lady has become very quiet. She is often in a daze. Sai, when you have time, come visit our Huang family. Many people in our Huang family know about what happened in the training space. Our patriarch and ancestor are extremely grateful to you. If I have time in the future, Genshin will definitely pay a visit to the Huang family. Genshin cupped his hands and said. Elder Yun sighed and said apologetically, Genshin, the matter a few years ago was all our fault. The two of us would like to apologize to you. I hope you won't take it to heart. Genshin smiled freely and said, speaking of which, that matter was all Genshin's fault. There was some unpleasantness between Miss Huang Wan and I, but it was resolved in the training space during the mercenary tournament. There is no need for the two elders to mention it again. Hearing these words, Elders Feng and Yun revealed a happy smile on their faces and said, Little friend, Genshin, we still have to hurry back to the family, so we will take our leave first. We must report this matter to the ancestor in advance, so as to avoid Elder Yen Lai from adding fuel to the fire in front of the ancestor. Genshin also cupped his hands and said with a smile, I hope that the two elders will send my regards to Miss Huang Wan. Ha ha ha, we will definitely pass on your words. Little friend Genshin. Elders Feng and Yun chuckled before turning into two streaks of light and disappearing into the horizon. Genshin sent off the two elders with his eyes. He did not really want to offend the Huang family, even ignoring his relationship with Huang Wan. Just the strength of the Huang family was enough for Genshin to fear. In particular, the Saint Ruler of the Huang family gave Genshin a lot of pressure. Chapter 470. Qiangan Kingdom. Although I've obtained the skeleton of a holy king, you've also caused trouble for me. I don't need to abide by the agreement we made back then. It looks like I should pay a visit to the Qiangan Kingdom when I'm free and seek justice for this matter. Genshin muttered to himself as he hovered in the air. At the same time, he was worried about the Huang family. Although he had helped Huang Wan in the past and allowed the Huang family to keep the sun and moon bow, the skeleton of a holy king was a treasure that was not much weaker than a ruler armament. Would the ancestor of the Huang family disregard their past kindness and make things difficult for him and forcefully take the skeleton from him? From the conversation between the elders, Genshin could tell that the skeleton was very useful to the ancestor of the Huang family. However, his identity as the imperial protector of the Qin Empire gave Genshin some confidence in facing these powerful clans. With this identity, the ancestor of the Huang family probably wouldn't dare to do anything too outrageous. It looks like I need to refine the chaotic body as soon as possible. Only then will I have a greater chance of fighting against a holy king. Jianqin murmured. He had already made up his mind. When he returned, he would immediately refine the skeleton of a holy king and strengthen his body. Jianqin's body turned into a faint green light as he flew towards the kingdom of Jessen. Very soon, he disappeared into the horizon. At the same time in the heavenly eagle kingdom, a fleet of carriages majestically entered the royal palace. All the soldiers guarding the palace gates knelt down on one knee. After a few days of travel, the second prince and prime minister of the heavenly eagle kingdom finally arrived at the royal palace safely. When the fleet of carriages entered the royal palace, the exhausted second prince and prime minister alighted from the carriage and headed straight for the meeting hall. In the heavenly eagle kingdom's great meeting hall, the king, who had already received the news, was seated on the throne and waiting for a long time. On both sides of the great hall, there are 20 experts in armor standing there without moving. They looked like statues. All of them were expressionless, but their eyes shone brightly. As soon as the second prince and prime minister entered the hall, they saw the king sitting high on the throne and immediately knelt down on one knee. "Your subject greets your majesty." "Greetings, father." The king took the teacup from the maid and took a sip. He smiled and said, "You may rise." "My son, prime minister, did your trip to the kingdom of Jessen go smoothly?" "Imperial father, the kingdom of Jessen is too arrogant. Not only are they condescending and looking down on our heavenly eagle kingdom, they even injured Senior George N. We almost couldn't walk out of the kingdom of Jessen's palace." The second prince immediately recounted the events that happened in the kingdom of Jessen with exaggerated details. His expression was extremely furious, as if he had been wronged. After hearing the second prince's story, the king of the heavenly eagle kingdom's smiling face slowly turned gloomy. He then looked at Prime Minister Che and asked in a low voice, "Prime Minister, is what my son said true? Did the kingdom of Jessen really do such a thing?" "Your Majesty, the second prince's story is mostly true. The kingdom of Jessen does indeed look down on our heavenly eagle kingdom. Senior George N. was also injured by their people. In the end, they even tried to make us stay here forever." Prime Minister Che said respectfully, "They've gone too far." The king was furious. He slammed his hand on the armrest of the throne and shouted, "Men, bring Senior Chiao here." "Yes, your Majesty." A guard immediately ran out. Soon, the pale-faced George N. entered the hall. The king immediately stood up from his throne and went to George inside. He asked with concern, "Senior Chiao, are you all right?" Facing a heaven saint master, the king of the heavenly eagle kingdom had to treat him as an equal. George N. shook his head and said, "I'll be fine after resting for a while." After that, the king learned more about the situation from George. Although there were some discrepancies between the information he got from Prime Minister Che and the second prince, the most important points were the same. This made the king of the heavenly eagle kingdom's expression turn very ugly. "Men, bring me 1,000-year-old ginseng that I've collected." The king ordered a palace maid. "Yes, your Majesty." The palace maid accepted the order and immediately retreated. "Senior Chiao, I've obtained 1,000-year-old ginseng not long ago. I'll give it to Senior Chiao to recuperate. As for the matter of the kingdom of Jessen, I'll definitely seek justice for them." A cold light flashed through the king's eyes when he mentioned the kingdom of Jessen. George N. smiled and said, "Thank you for the gift, your Majesty. However, you must be careful of the person called Chongyang Shoten from the kingdom of Jessen. Not only is his talent shocking, but he also possesses an extremely great power. He can easily destroy a Heaven Saint Master's saint weapon. I was injured by this power. Then he can't be left alive. Otherwise, he'll be a huge threat to our kingdom in the future." the king said with a heavy voice. After George N. left, the king returned to his throne and looked down at the kneeling Prime Minister Che and the second prince. He exuded the presence of an emperor and yelled, "Prime Minister Che, have you investigated the relationship between the Kingdom of Jesson and the Qin Empire?" "Your Majesty, I've already investigated it. The relationship between the Kingdom of Jesson and the Qin Empire isn't as close as we imagined. When I arrived at the palace of the Kingdom of Jesson, the imperial advisor of the Qin Empire had already left. I've also conversed with the king of the Kingdom of Jesson. From his words, I've deduced that even the king of the Kingdom of Jesson doesn't know why the Qin Empire would suddenly support the Kingdom of Jesson." "Humph, just as I thought." The king sneered and said, "It looks like the king of the Kingdom of Jesson relies on Chanyang Shoten the most. He's a Heaven Saint Master at such a young age, and he even possesses a great power that can easily destroy a Heaven Saint Master Saint weapon. He's even defeated Senior George N. He really is impressive. It's a pity that he's not a member of our Kingdom of Jesson. All right, the two of you must be tired from the journey. Go and rest. I have other plans for this matter." "Yes, Your Majesty." Half a day later, 8 Heaven Saint Masters hurried over from various places. In the end, they all gathered in the imperial palace of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. They stayed there for an hour before leaving at the same time. However, there were 2 more people with them, making it a total of 10 people. 2 days later, the palace of the Kingdom of Jesson remained the same as before. Groups of armored soldiers patrolled the palace. The king of the Kingdom of Jesson spent the past 2 days playing chess with Yi Ming in the garden. He no longer needed to worry about the future of the Kingdom of Jesson because the Kingdom of Jesson had truly gained a powerful backer. Boom! Chapter 471. In the garden, the sudden explosion disturbed the king and Yi Ming, who were playing chess in the pavilion. The 2 of them looked away from the chessboard at the same time and stared in the direction of the palace gates in confusion. "What happened?" the king asked with a deep voice and a frown. He could sense that something was wrong from the flames in the sky. Yi Ming stared in the direction of the palace gates for a while before his expression changed drastically. He said softly, "Oh no, something's happened." With that, Yi Ming turned into a blur and disappeared from the pavilion. He quickly made his way to the palace gates. Outside the palace gates of the Kingdom of Jesson, the originally majestic walls had been completely destroyed. They had been reduced to rubble that covered the ground. Over 20 bloodied soldiers lay unconscious on the rubble. No one knew if they were dead or alive. The ground was paved with green marble, and there were traces of scorching black marks left on it. The intense heat was transmitted from the floor, making people feel as if they were in a steamer. Above the shattered walls, 10 people in various attires hovered 20 meters above the ground. They looked down emotionlessly with cold eyes. They were all peak Heaven Saint Masters. The loud explosion had attracted the attention of many hidden experts patrolling the Kingdom of Jesson. All of them hurried over, but when they saw the 10 experts hovering in the air, their faces changed drastically. They all paled. "God damn it, there are so many Heaven Saint Masters, and they're the enemy. Hurry up and sound the war drums." An Earth Saint Master ordered with trembling lips. 10 Heaven Saint Masters were equivalent to all the experts in the Kingdom of Jesson. Dong! 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 The heavy sound of the war drums rang out very quickly. The sound of the war drums was extremely penetrating, spreading throughout the entire palace. This was the highest warning in the Kingdom of Jesson. It had not been sounded for several decades. Once the war drums were sounded, it meant that the palace of the Kingdom of Jesson was facing a great threat. Everyone had to put down everything they were doing and fight the enemy. All the guards and experts scattered around the imperial palace were alarmed by the sound of the war drums. After being stunned for a moment, they quickly reacted and rushed towards the imperial palace gate. Shadows could be seen everywhere. A tremendous presence radiated from the imperial palace. Yi Ming, who was wrapped in a layer of water elemental energy, flew over from the garden and arrived at the entrance of the imperial palace in a single moment. He sternly stared at the 10 Heaven Saint Masters who hovered in the air. His face was extremely ugly, and he did not care about the damaged entrance at all. "Who are you guys?" Yi Ming asked in a deep voice. Among the 10 people, an old man wearing a luxurious robe sneered disdainfully. "We are from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Immediately summon the king of your kingdom of Jessen, Princess Glan and Chanyang Shoten. It's best if we don't look for them personally. Otherwise, the consequences are not something your kingdom of Jessen can bear. Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, you actually dare to behave atrociously in my kingdom of Jessen. Do you really think that our kingdom of Jessen is still as weak and easy to bully as before?" Yi Ming said in a deep voice. His face was extremely stern. He was the only Heaven Saint Master in the Imperial Palace right now. The others were scattered everywhere and would not be able to rush over in a short amount of time. Currently, the Imperial Palace did not have the power to stop the 10 Heaven Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. "You're right. We really don't see anything about your kingdom of Jessen that makes us fear you," said a middle-aged man in red robes. His face was filled with disdain. Yi Ming snorted coldly. He did not fear facing the 10 Heaven Saint Masters alone. He yelled, "Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, if you don't want to cause trouble, then leave quickly. Otherwise, the Qin Empire will not let you go. Do you know the relationship between the Kingdom of Jessen and the Qin Empire?" "Humph, you're just bluffing. Don't tell us that the Kingdom of Jessen and the Qin Empire have a close relationship. We're not as easy to fool as 3-year-olds, sneered an old man. They had all heard from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom's king that the Kingdom of Jessen and the Qin Empire did not have a close relationship. As a result, they completely ignored the threat of the Kingdom of Jessen bringing the Qin Empire over. Quickly summon the king and Princess Glan. Otherwise, we'll raze the Kingdom of Jessen's imperial palace to the ground." A dark-skinned old man sternly said. His gaze was extremely sharp, as if 2 bolts of lightning were shooting out from his eyes. At this moment, several thousand elite soldiers and black-armored soldiers had gathered at the entrance of the imperial palace. However, when they saw the 10 experts of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom hovering in the air, they were all dumbfounded. A peak expert like the Heaven Saint Master was not someone they could deal with. Even though there were thousands of them, they were powerless before a peak expert like the Heaven Saint Master. The king walked out of the garden under the protection of a few experts of the black armored army. When he saw the 10 Heaven Saint Masters hovering in the air, his face became extremely stern. However, he did not stop because of this. With his head held high, he walked over with large strides. One of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom's experts discovered the king and said to the others in a low voice, "Look, that person should be the king of the Kingdom of Jessen." The 10 Heavenly Eagle Kingdom's experts all looked at the king. One of them nodded and said, "It should be him. Let the old man capture him." With that, the old man flew toward the king. "Don't even think about it." Yi Ming angrily roared. He moved in front of the old man and attacked without any hesitation. The saint weapon in his hand slashed toward the old man with powerful ripples of energy. A cold light flashed through the old man's eyes. He immediately drew his own saint weapon and began fighting with Yi Ming. "Let's end this quickly. By Lai, the 2 of us will go help Elder Amo," one of the old men said in a low voice. He then drew his own weapon and charged toward Yi Ming. The old man standing next to him nodded and joined the battle. The 3 of them attacked Yi Ming at the same time. The 3 experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom were not any weaker than Yi Ming. In fact, one of them was even stronger than Yi Ming. Yi Ming was fighting 1 against 3, and the pressure on him was immense. He was completely suppressed by the 3 of them and could only block and dodge. He had no strength to retaliate. After all, He did not have the supreme battle prowess of the imperial advisor of the Qin Empire or Changwuji. The battle between the four of them was extremely intense. Every time they collided, a powerful energy storm would erupt and wreak havoc. It was as if thunder was rumbling from the 9 heavens. The powerful shock waves of energy caused the Jessan Kingdom's imperial palace to be in a mess. A large number of soldiers were affected and suffered heavy casualties. The imperial palace immediately became chaotic. The thousands of elite soldiers gathered at the entrance of the palace all fled in all directions, avoiding the disaster that was descending from the sky. "Your Majesty, let's go." The few experts of the Black Armored Army who were protecting the king also saw that the situation was bad. They forcefully carried the king and fled into the depths of the palace. They knew that there was no power in the palace that could stop the 10 Heaven Saint Masters. The only way was to escape. One of the experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom noticed the experts of the Black Armored Army who were carrying the king into the depths of the palace. He sneered, "Humph, you want to leave? Do you think we're just decorations?" As soon as he finished speaking, the expert shot through the air with a dense earth elemental energy in pursuit of the king. The expression of one of the experts of the Black Armored Army changed. He cried out, "Oh no, they're coming. Protect the king and leave. I'll stop them." "Be careful, Commander." "Take care, Commander." The experts of the Black Armored Army all cried out. Their faces were distressed, but they did not slow down at all. They carried the king and fled into the depths of the palace in an attempt to use a secret passage to escape. A shiny, silver curved blade appeared in the commander's hand. He coldly stared at the Heaven Saint Master, who was rapidly approaching him. Suddenly he roared out, "The first form of the Bifamily's blade technique, Heaven Splitter." The silver curved blade became a jade-green color in a single moment, making it seem extremely demonic. Afterward, a green light erupted from the blade, illuminating the sky with resplendent light. It dyed the surroundings green as it shot through the air, heading toward the Heaven Saint Master with lightning-like speed. At the same time, a pressure that belonged to the world suddenly appeared. It permeated the surrounding space, and the Heaven Saint Master who had been targeted by the light felt it the most. He only felt that the surrounding space seemed to be squeezing him, as if he had fallen into a quagmire. His movements were greatly hindered. This is a Heaven tier battle skill." The expression of the Heaven Saint Master who had chased after the king changed drastically. His face was filled with disbelief as he stared at the black-armored Earth Saint Master in front of him. He had never imagined that a mere Earth Saint Master of the Jessan Kingdom would actually possess such a precious Heaven tier battle skill. What? The commander actually knows a Heaven tier battle skill. The few experts of the Black Armored Army who were carrying the king into the depths of the palace also stopped in their tracks. Their eyes widened as they stared at the Black Armored Army commander behind them in disbelief. In the air above the imperial palace, the 6 idle Heaven Saint Masters were drawn over by the pressure of the Heaven tier battle skill. They all cried out and began to rush toward the Black Armored Army expert who had used the Heaven tier battle skill. Their eyes shone with greed as they all wanted to obtain the cultivation method of the Heaven tier battle skill from the Black Armored Army expert as soon as possible. The 3 experts of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom who were fighting against Yiming could not resist the temptation of the Heaven tier battle skill. The 3 of them roared out in unison and used their full strength to heavily injure Yiming. He fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. Without any hesitation, they quickly charged toward the commander. The expert, who had been targeted by the Heaven tier battle skill, calmed down very quickly. A cruel smile appeared on his face as he chuckled. "I never thought that a puny Earth Saint Master would actually know a Heaven tier battle skill. This has truly exceeded my expectations. However, with your strength, you won't be able to use the Heaven tier battle skill at all. Even if you do, you won't be able to threaten me. I'll show you the power of my Earth tier battle skill." With that, the huge sword in the Heaven Saint Master's hand shone with a bright yellow light as he used his Earth Tier battle skill to contend against the Heaven Tier battle skill. The two collided, erupting with a powerful storm of energy that sent the palaces on both sides flying. The ground also cracked inch by inch, forming thick cracks. Chapter 472. A few Heaven Saint Masters immediately charged in by Dao's direction. They burrowed into the palace and pulled out the heavily injured by Dao. The 10 Heaven Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom all stared at by Dao with shining eyes. They did not hide the greed in their eyes at all. Even their breathing had become heavy. Quick, take off his space ring and see if there's a Heaven Tier battle skill inside. They had completely forgotten their mission before the temptation of a Heaven Tier battle skill. Someone immediately took off by Dao's space ring impatiently and checked its contents. A while later, he shook his head in disappointment. There's nothing. The Heaven Tier battle skill isn't in the space ring. Let me see. One of them refused to give up. He snatched the space ring and began to check it, but he revealed the same expression very soon. He was filled with disappointment. There really isn't anything. Afterward, everyone checked the space ring. Sure enough, they did not find any Heaven Tier battle skills. There was not even an Earth Tier battle skill. Take him back first, then slowly interrogate him. An old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion said indifferently, "We have to obtain this Heaven Tier battle skill, no matter what. Even if he has to write it down, we have to make him write it down for us." A middle-aged man in tight robes coldly said, "If we obtain a Heaven Tier battle skill, our strength will definitely increase by another level," said a skinny old man. His eyes shone as he was filled with excitement. The other people also smiled excitedly when they heard that. They had been drooling over a Heaven Tier battle skill for a very long time. If they did not have any background or fortuitous encounters, even Heaven Saint Masters would struggle to obtain a Heaven Tier battle skill. However, none of them possessed a Heaven Tier battle skill among the 10 of them. The most powerful one was a high-level Earth Tier battle skill. Oh no, the commander has been captured. Nearby, an expert of the Black Armored Army who protected the king said with an ugly expression, "Don't worry about that. Protect the king first." An expert of the Black Armored Army ordered. An expert of the Black Armored Army beside him shouted in a low voice. He carried the king and quickly fled into the depths of the palace. Bai Dao is Chanyang Shoten's uncle. You can't let anything happen to him. Or how am I supposed to answer to them? The king struggled violently, as if he wanted to break free from the hands of the experts of the Black Armored Army. However, with his ability, all of this was destined to be a waste of energy. A few experts from the Black Armored Army held the king's body tightly as they ran. An expert, whose face was covered by a black helmet, said in a hurried tone, "Your Majesty, there are 10 experts on the other side. We can't defend against them at all. If we go, we will just be throwing our lives away in vain. Let's preserve our lives first and think of a way to rescue the commander in the future." Sigh. The Heavenly Eagle Kingdom's actions this time had truly caught the kingdom of Jessen off guard. Suddenly, the rapidly running figures of the Black Armored Army experts came to an abrupt halt. Each and every one of them stared in front of them with incomparably solemn expressions. Right in front of them, a middle-aged man was floating 5 meters above the ground, looking at them with a sneer on his face. He was one of the 10 Heaven Saint Masters of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. With so many of us taking action this time, if we still let you escape right under our noses, then we won't have the face to see anyone when we return. The middle-aged man's tone was very calm. His gaze towards the experts of the Black Armored Army was filled with disdain. The experts of the Black Armored Army slowly put the king down. At the same time, they took out their saint weapons and yelled, "We swear to protect the king with our lives!" Their eyes were filled with a fearless spirit. They disregarded life and death as they charged towards the Heaven Saint Master at the same time. The middle-aged man's face turned cold. He sneered, "A bunch of ants. How dare you act so impudently?" The middle-aged man suddenly pushed his hand forward. Vast amounts of energy of the world erupted from his hand, forming a powerful current that rushed towards the experts of the black armored army. Bang! 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 Following a few muffled sounds of collisions, the bodies of the black armored army experts seemed to have been hit by a mountain rock. One after another, they spat out a mouthful of blood as their bodies flew backwards. Even the pitch-black armor on their bodies had small cracks on it. After losing the protection of the experts of the black armored army, the king was now all alone. However, there was not the slightest trace of fear on his face. Instead, he glared fiercely at the expert from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom and furiously said, "Your Heavenly Eagle Kingdom will pay a heavy price for what you have done today. Do you know the identity of the black armored army commander we just captured? He is the uncle of the Imperial Protector of the Qin Empire." "What? The uncle of the Imperial Protector of the Qin Empire? Ha ha ha!" The middle-aged man laughed loudly at the king's words. He looked at the king as if he was looking at an idiot and said, "Your Majesty, the king of the kingdom of Jessin, no matter what, you are still the ruler of a kingdom. I didn't expect you to say such a childish thing. What kind of status does the Imperial Protector of the Qin Empire have? Why would his uncle be a small guard in your little kingdom of Jessin to protect you? Humph, you will regret this sooner or later." The king of the kingdom of Jessin coldly said. He also knew that this matter was somewhat shocking, so he was too lazy to waste his energy explaining. After all, no one would believe him. The middle-aged man slowly walked to the king's side and said with a fake smile, "Your Majesty, we are only inviting you to our Heavenly Eagle Kingdom as a guest. At the same time, we have also invited Princess Glan and Changyang Shoten. It's best if you call them out. It's best if you don't make us do it ourselves. I'm sure you know the consequences of us doing it ourselves." Hearing this, the king's eyes flashed with an undetectable light. He coldly smiled and said, "Princess Glan and Changyang Shoten are not in the palace. They are currently in Changyang Prefecture in Lore City. If you really have the guts, then go to Changyang Prefecture and capture them." Humph. Right now, only Changyang Prefecture in the Kingdom of Jessin could contend against 10 Heaven Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. This was because the king knew that there were 7 Heaven Saint Masters in Changyang Prefecture, ignoring the fact that Changyang Shoten and Changwuji possessed unparalleled strength and battle prowess. Just the 5 Imperial advisors of the Qin Empire could easily take on 2 Heaven Saint Masters by themselves. Right now, he and Bai Dao had nowhere else to go. Their only chance of escape was in Changyang Prefecture. Changyang Prefecture. The middle-aged man softly murmured. A cold light gradually flashed through his eyes as he evilly smiled. "We just happened to be on our way to Changyang Prefecture as well. It's on the way. Your Majesty, let's go." The middle-aged man grabbed the king by the collar and shot off into the air. Very soon, he met up with the other 9 Heaven Saint Masters. "Everyone, I've captured the king of the kingdom of Jessin." The middle-aged man placed the king on the ground and faintly smiled at the 9 people. "Where's Princess Glan and Changyang Shoten? We need to bring them back as well," an old man said. The middle-aged man chuckled. "Princess Glan and Changyang Shoten aren't in the Imperial Palace. They're in Changyang Prefecture right now. It just so happens that Changyang Prefecture is one of the places we need to go. There's no time to lose. Let's hurry to Changyang Prefecture. However, we need to be careful of that Changyang Shoten. I heard from George that he possesses an unknown power that can easily destroy our saint weapons," a red-robed old man said. Towards the end, a sliver of seriousness appeared on his face. "Don't worry. I don't believe that he can stop so many of us at the same time. As long as we call a few more people, he'll still be overwhelmed." Afterward, the 10 Heaven Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom took off with the king of the kingdom of Jessin and Bai Dao. The thousands of elite soldiers in the Imperial Palace and the heavily injured Yi Ming could only watch as they swaggered off. Chapter 473. Within the Chanyang prefecture of Lore City, Chanyanba and Changwuji were currently chatting with the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire in a luxurious room. In the days that Jianqin had been gone, Chanyanba would take some time to chat with the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire, trying to get closer to them. Senior imperial advisors, have you gotten used to living here? If there's anything you don't like, please tell us. We'll definitely fix it. Chanyanba chuckled. Although his son was the imperial protector of the Qin Empire, and these 5 imperial advisors could only be considered subordinates, Chanyanba was still extremely courteous to them. After all, they were peak heaven saint masters. Patriarch is far too courteous. The 5 of us have been very comfortable here. We're very satisfied, Xiao Tian said with a smile. Xiao Tian smiled faintly. Since he was the strongest out of the 5 and possessed great talent, he seemed to have become the leader of the group when Jianqin was not present. They casually chatted in the room, although they did not take Chanyanba seriously, because he was only a great saint master. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire were still extremely courteous to Chanyanba. They did not dare to put on any airs and treated him as an equal because he had an extremely outstanding son. While they were chatting happily, Changwuji, who was sitting at the side, was slightly taken aback, and his expression immediately became serious. He cupped his hands and said, 5 imperial advisors, Patriarch, this old servant has something to do. So this old servant will take his leave first. Changbo, you can go do whatever you need to do. Chanyanba chuckled. He looked at Changbo as if he was looking at his own elder. Changwuji, if there's anything you need us to do, feel free to tell us, Xiao Tian said with a smile as he glanced at the sky outside. Changwuji gratefully thanked him before leaving the room. Standing in front of the door, Changwuji looked at the sky with a serious expression. Light flickered in his eyes, and there was also some confusion. Then he slowly rose into the air and hovered high above Chanyang Prefecture, looking into the distance. Heaven Saint Masters flew very quickly. Lore City was only a few thousand kilometers away from the royal capital. 10 Heaven Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom escorted the king of the Kingdom of Jessin and the commander of the Black Armored Army to Lore City after a few hours of flight. They were currently flying in the direction of Chanyang Prefecture. A skinny old man looked at the map in his hand and said, Chanyang Prefecture is up ahead. This incident was mainly caused by Chanyang Prefecture. Just exterminate a small family clan and show them the consequences of offending our Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, the ruddy old man said. He was a member of the imperial family of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, so he understood the entire situation much better than anyone else. Exterminating Chanyang Prefecture was also the king's idea. Hearing these words, the king, who was being held captive by the middle-aged man, revealed a disdainful sneer. He thought to himself, Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, you've poked a hornet's nest this time. No one can save you now. The 10 Heaven Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom arrived above Chanyang Prefecture very quickly, but Changwuji had been waiting for quite some time with his hands behind his back. The group of people from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had arrived with great fanfare. They did not hide their presences at all, so Changwuji and Xiao Tian had sensed them the moment they entered Lore City. Changwuji sternly glanced at the 10 experts before him. His eyes quickly locked onto the king and the unconscious Baidao. He immediately paled in fright and could not help but cry out, Your Majesty! You should be the greatest expert of Chanyang Prefecture. Changwuji, right? The ruddy old man stared at Changwuji coldly as he asked nonchalantly. Changwuji immediately understood the situation after the king and Baidao of the Kingdom of Jessin had been captured. The 10 experts were enemies. Who are you? Changwuji asked with a heavy voice and a sunken face. We're from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Changwuji, tell Chanyang Shoten to get out here. Nothing good ever happens to those who offend our Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, the ruddy old man said emotionlessly. His voice became colder and colder. A cold light flashed through Chang Wuji's eyes as a tremendous presence radiated from his body. He glared at the 10 people and yelled out, "People of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, how dare you disrespect the 4th young master? Are you tired of living? How dare you speak to the people of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom like that? You're looking to die." The white-haired old man was enraged. He immediately took out his saint weapon and charged at Chang Wuji. Chang Wuji snorted coldly. He was not afraid at all. However, his battle-intent sword as a saint weapon immediately appeared in his hand. At the same time, saint force surged out of Chang Wuji's body, almost surpassing his own strength. The surging ripples of energy caused the surrounding space to ripple. In order to deter his opponent, Chang Wuji used the heavens' stealing's fortune right from the start. His battle prowess tripled as a 5th cycle Heaven Saint Master, reaching the peak of the 6th cycle Earth Saint Master. Even though the attack did not possess enough power to destroy the world, it was still powerful enough to shatter mountains. Boom! The collision of the 2 saint weapons was like a clap of thunder in the sky. The expert from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom immediately grunted as blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He was sent flying by Chang Wuji's attack. In just a single move, he had defeated a 2nd cycle Heaven Saint Master. Chang Wuji's shocking battle prowess caused the remaining 9 Heaven Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom to change in expression. Before they had come, they had investigated the matters of the Changyang Prefecture. Although they knew that Chang Wuji was very powerful, they did not think that he was this powerful. Back when the Kingdom of Jessen was fighting against the allied army of the 4 kingdoms, Chang Wuji was able to kill Heaven Saint Masters one after another because of the might of a Heaven tier battle skill. But now Chang Wuji was able to injure a 2nd cycle Heaven Saint Master with a casual attack. His battle prowess had far exceeded their expectations. Below, the entire Changyang Prefecture was alarmed. A large number of guards charged out of their houses with murderous intent, but when they saw the 11 Heaven Saint Masters in the sky, they were immediately stunned. They gulped with difficulty and shrunk their necks, no longer saying anything. "Release the king and Bai Dao immediately, or you'll have to bear the consequences." Chang Wuji did not continue to attack. Instead, he stared at the people with a cold gaze and growled. Now that the king and Bai Dao were in their hands, Chang Wuji was unable to do anything. He was also worried about harming the 2 of them. "Don't even think about it. Chang Wuji, I admit that you're very powerful. None of us are your opponent in a one-on-one fight, but you're just one person. Even with Changyang Shodan, you're only 2 Heaven Saint Masters. There are 10 of us. Do you really think you can defeat us?" An old man asked. Chang Wuji sneered. "You underestimate my Changyang Prefecture far too much. Release them immediately, and there's still room for negotiation. Otherwise, your Heavenly Eagle Kingdom will become the sworn enemy of our Kingdom of Jessen. You'll definitely be destroyed." "Ha ha ha, what a joke. Just what ability does your Kingdom of Jessen have to destroy my Heavenly Eagle Kingdom?" The ruddy old man laughed aloud. He looked at the Kingdom of Jessen with disdain. At this moment, the expert who had been injured by Chang Wuji flew back. His face was rather pale, and his gaze toward Chang Wuji was filled with deep fear. A red-haired old man in fiery red robes said, "They're all going to die anyway, so let's not waste time on them. Send a few people to deal with Chang Wuji. Send 2 more people to find Changyang Shoten. That cowardly person is actually afraid to come out at a time like this." The red-haired old man was a 4th cycle Heaven Saint Master, and he was also the most powerful person in the group. He possessed great prestige in the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, so he had vaguely become the leader of the group. Fair enough. Patriarch Zhou, Sect Master Huang, Elder Mubai, and Elder Pinyin. Let the 5 of us deal with Chang Wuji together. The skinny old man chuckled. The 5 of them were all 3rd cycle Heaven Saint Masters. If they worked together, even a 6th cycle Heaven Saint Master would have a hard time. The 5 old men strode through the air and walked out of the group. One of them sneered. I heard that Changwuji has a heaven-tier battle skill. Looks like we've gained quite a bit from this trip to the kingdom of Jessen. As soon as he finished speaking, the 5 of them charged toward Changwuji as if they had already discussed this beforehand. The 6 of them began to fight. Father! Suddenly, a cry rang out from below. The Grand Princess Yu and Bai Yuntian stood below. They stared at the king in the hands of the experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom in fright. Their beautiful faces had already paled in fright, afraid that their father would be in danger. Seeing that his daughter was actually below, the king's expression changed slightly. He immediately shouted, quickly hide, quickly hide. The shock waves from a battle between Heaven Saint Masters could injure a large number of people. The king was also very worried that his daughter would be injured by the shock waves. The conversation between the father and daughter allowed the experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom to know the identity of the Grand Princess. Immediately, 2 of them quickly descended in an attempt to capture the Grand Princess. The Grand Princess was also one of their targets. However, before the 5 of them could land on the ground of Chanyang Prefecture, a sudden change occurred. 5 figures shot up from below at an extremely fast speed. A vast and boundless aura had already locked onto the 2 of them. The enormous pressure was so great that the 2 of them could barely breathe. What? The 2 Heaven Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom were shocked. They never thought that there would be 5 Heaven Saint Masters hidden in Chanyang Prefecture. Moreover, these 5 Heaven Saint Masters were not weaker than them. There were even 3 of them who were much stronger than them. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire had finally made their move. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire did not give the 2 experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom any time to react. Since they were enemies, they would not hold back. As soon as the 2 sides approached each other, the 5 imperial advisors attacked with all their strength. In a single exchange, the 2 experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom were heavily injured. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and flew high into the sky. What? There are actually 5 hidden experts in Chanyang Prefecture. How is this possible? How can there be so many Heaven Saint Masters in Chanyang Prefecture? Could it be that all the experts of the Kingdom of Jessen have gathered in Chanyang Prefecture? The experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom were all shocked. The situation had completely exceeded their expectations. None of them thought that Chanyang Prefecture would have so many hidden experts. In particular, the vast and boundless aura from the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire caused their faces to become extremely ugly. The weakest of these people was a 3rd cycle Heaven Saint Master. There was even one who did not seem to be weaker than Changwuji. Chapter 474. As soon as the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire charged over, they managed to injure 2 of the experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Without slowing down at all, they continued toward the other 3 people hovering in the air. Bastards, who was in charge of this information? Why are there so many experts in Chanyang Prefecture? The 5 Heaven Saint Masters surrounding Changwuji also noticed what was happening below. Their expressions immediately changed, and they immediately sent 3 people to intercept the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire, leaving 2 behind to deal with Changwuji. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire did not say anything. An intense battle erupted as soon as they came into contact with experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Among the experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, the red-haired old man who was a 4th cycle Heaven Saint Master faced off against Xiao Tian, while the others each blocked an imperial advisor of the Qin Empire. The middle-aged man who had captured the king of the Kingdom of Jessen also passed the king to the people beside him. He said, "I'll leave him to you. Watch him carefully. I'll go lend them a hand." The old man beside him held the king of the Kingdom of Jessen in his left hand and the unconscious Bai Dao in his right. He said, "Be careful." The middle-aged man sternly nodded. He took out his saint weapon and charged into the battle. Over a dozen Heaven Saint Masters engaged in an intense battle in the air above Changyang Prefecture. The red-haired old man had only exchanged a few blows with Xiao Tian when he was struck in the chest by a palm strike. He immediately spat out a mouthful of blood as his face paled in a single moment. Xiao Tian was a 5th cycle Heaven Saint Master and an imperial advisor of the Qin Empire. His battle prowess was unrivaled even among 5th cycle Heaven Saint Masters. His battle prowess was no weaker than a 6th cycle Heaven Saint Master. So the difference between him and the red-haired old man was extremely great. They were not even on the same level. After witnessing Xiao Tian's strength, the red-haired old man's expression became more serious. He shouted, "There are no experts like you in the kingdom of Jessen. You are not from the kingdom of Jessen. Who are you?" Xiao Tian couldn't be bothered to answer. Without saying a word, the saint weapon in his hand continuously attacked the red-haired old man. Soon, the red-haired old man was forced to the point where he couldn't fight back at all. All he could do was block the attacks. "Quickly come and help me." Having fallen into such a dangerous situation, the red-haired old man couldn't care less about his face anymore, and he shouted loudly for help. Hearing the old man's call for help, 2 pale-faced Heaven Saint Masters with a trickle of blood at the corner of their mouths immediately joined in. They worked together to stop Xiao Tian. The 2 of them were the people who had wanted to go to Changyang Prefecture to capture the Gland Princess. But the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire had suddenly appeared and injured them as soon as they clashed. However, the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire had already heavily injured the 2 of them. They could only use 70 or 80% of their battle prowess at most. Even when they worked together with the red-haired old man, they were unable to suppress Xiao Tian. They could only barely maintain the balance. Chang Wuji's pressure immediately decreased after losing 3 opponents. With his strength that was basically on par with Xiao Tian, he managed to make up for his disadvantage in just a few exchanges, suppressing the 2 third-cycle Heaven Saint Masters and preventing them from fighting back. Out of the 10 Heaven Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, one of them had to take care of the king and by Tao of the Kingdom of Jessen, so only 9 people participated in the battle. Out of the 9, Xiao Tian fought 3 by himself, while Chang Wuji fought 2. Both of them held the upper hand. The remaining 4 Heaven Saint Masters from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom engaged in an intense battle with the 4 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire. Qing Xiaofan, Dongi Junbai, Chao Kachin, and Tian Luo. 2 of the imperial advisors of the Qin Empire were 3rd cycle Heaven Saint Masters, while the other 2 were 4th cycle Heaven Saint Masters. They were an entire level stronger than their opponents. Coupled with their extraordinary battle prowess, they completely suppressed the experts of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom as soon as they clashed. Very few people of the same level of strength could defeat them in a one-on-one battle. After all, the Qin Empire was one of the 8 great kingdoms on the Tianyuan continent, second only to the 3 great empires. The people who could become imperial advisors of the Qin Empire were the cream of the crop, the elites of the elites. The battle between 15 Heaven Saint Masters could be described as earth-shaking. Every time they clashed, every clash of energy would erupt with a great boom. The deafening sound reverberated far and wide, reaching all of Lore City. At that moment, everyone in the city stopped what they were doing and stared in the direction of Changyang Prefecture curiously. Even the mercenaries who were dining in the restaurant ran out of the street or climbed up to the roof of the restaurant to look in the direction of the sound. All kinds of discussions were incessant. What's going on? Why is there such a great disturbance all of a sudden? The sound seems to have come from Changyang Prefecture. What's going on in Changyang Prefecture? The disturbance caused by the battle between over a dozen Heaven Saint Masters was just too great. All of Lore City had been alarmed. Even though they were very far away, a few experts were still able to sense the violent ripples of energy in the air. In a courtyard belonging to a mercenary group in Lore City, a bare-chested, burly man quickly walked out of his room. He stared at the sky with an extremely stern expression and said in surprise, What's going on? The energy of the world is actually rippling so violently. Don't tell me there's a battle between Heaven Saint Masters? The Earth Saint Masters of the 3 other large clans of Lore City all walked out of their rooms as well. They all stared at the sky in shock. The energy ripples in the sky were just too violent. As long as they were Earth Saint Masters, they could clearly sense them. The vast and boundless energy ripples caused them to shudder. The ripples from the battle between over a dozen Heaven Saint Masters were far more violent and powerful than a battle between just a few Heaven Saint Masters. The energy ripples are coming from the direction of Chanyang Prefecture. Don't tell me there's a battle in Chanyang Prefecture? Only Chanyang Prefecture has Heaven Saint Masters in Lore City. Just what's going on in Chanyang Prefecture? The people of the 3 large clans and the Earth Saint Masters who remained in Lore City all guessed. They were extremely curious, so they all hurried in the direction of Chanyang Prefecture. The city lord's estate in Lore City was also alarmed. The city lord led a few Earth Saint Masters and quickly rode a few magical beasts to Chanyang Prefecture. Now, all the Earth Saint Masters in Lore City guessed that there was a battle between Heaven Saint Masters in Chanyang Prefecture. All of them stopped what they were doing and hurried in the direction of Chanyang Prefecture. No matter what happened in Chanyang Prefecture, a battle between Heaven Saint Masters was not to be missed. This was an opportunity for them. If they were lucky, they might be able to comprehend the mysteries of how Heaven Saint Masters controlled the energy of the world from the battle. From there, they might be able to break through and reach a higher level of cultivation. Now, Chanyang Prefecture was in chaos. Over a dozen Heaven Saint Masters were fighting above. The shock waves of energy caused the people of Chanyang Prefecture to suffer greatly. The entire Chanyang Prefecture was destroyed in an instant. A large number of guards and servants fled in all directions. Quite a few people were struck by the shock waves of energy from above, dying a violent death. In just a few short breaths, not a single intact house could be found in the huge Chanyang Prefecture. All the houses and buildings had been destroyed. Even the discussion hall in the center of Chanyang Prefecture had collapsed. The library where the martial arts manuals were stored had also collapsed. The tower that was several dozen meters tall had directly collapsed, destroying a large number of buildings. A few unlucky servants had even been crushed by the tower as they constantly let out miserable cries. Patriarch, run! Hide! A few guards loyally protected Chanyang Ba as they forcefully pulled Chanyang Ba to the basement. First, madam, let's go. Some of the guards immediately pulled the panic-stricken Ling Long far away. A ball of flame shot down from above and directly hit a house. Flames shot up into the sky, and the entire house seemed to have been engulfed in a raging fire. Ahu! Ahu! Go save our Ahu! Ahu is still in the house. Ling Long stared at the raging fire in an extremely urgent manner as she cried out in a sobbing voice. You protect the first, madam. I'll go save the first young master. A guard captain ordered a person to immediately charge into the raging fire and rescue Chanyang Ba from inside. Quickly cover the second, madam, and go to the basement. Under the protection of several guards, Yu Fengyan also ran towards the basement with a panicked expression. At the same time, Bai Yuntian also ran out of the house under the protection of a few guards. Fourth, madam, it's very dangerous outside. Quickly go to the basement. A guard captain hurriedly said. As soon as he finished speaking, a few strands of sword qi shot down from above, leaving behind a few bottomless holes in the ground. The expression on the captain's face immediately froze. Soon after, a stream of blood flowed from the top of his head and flowed down his resolute face. Captain, what's wrong? The guards around Bai Yuntian all cried out. They were filled with grief, and in the end, they could only watch as their captain collapsed in front of them. We can't waste any more time. Hurry and escort the fourth madam to the basement. The guards endured their grief and immediately used their bodies to shield Bai Yuntian as they ran to the basement. At this time, another powerful energy storm wreaked havoc down from the sky and lifted a nearby hall from the ground. It wanted to press down in the direction of Bayun Tian and made the complexion of several guards change drastically. At this moment, a pale green light flashed and disappeared. Ming Luo, who was dressed in white, appeared in front of them. He slashed out a sword chi and cut the 30-meter-tall hall into two halves, resolving the crisis that they were in. Ming Dong stared at the incoming energy storm and sternly said, "I'll open the way. Duga Feng, I'll leave Auntie Bai's safety to you. You must protect Auntie Bai well. If anything happens to her, neither of us will be able to answer to Jianqin." Dugu Feng stood to one side and cautiously looked around. He sternly said, "I'll do my best, but there are just too many Heaven Saint Masters fighting. In front of the powerful energy shockwaves, even the two of us need to be extremely careful. You have to look after me as well." Chapter 475. With the protection of the two Earth Saint Masters, Ming Dong and Duga Feng, Bayun Tian's safety was guaranteed. Princess Yu had always been by Bayun Tian's side, so she was also very safe. At this moment, a few more balls of powerful energy shot down from the sky and exploded nearby, creating a few deep craters in the ground. Large amounts of rocks shot in all directions toward Ming Dong and the others. "Be careful!" Ming Dong yelled out and stepped in front of Bayun Tian and the Gland Princess. The sword in his hand turned into a blur as he rapidly swung it, blocking the rocks that shot toward him. Dugu Feng was also holding a fiery, red, great sword in his hand as he stood on the other side. Although the two of them were quite strong, there were simply too many stones. Moreover, there were also waves of energy storms attacking them from time to time. This caused some of the stones to slip through the net. A finger-sized stone broke through the defensive line of the two and brushed past Bayun Tian's forehead. It left a small wound on Bayun Tian's forehead. Bright red blood flowed out from the wound. "Ah!" A painful groan came from Bayun Tian's side, only to see Grand Princess Yu clutching her left shoulder with a face full of pain. Traces of blood flowed out from the gaps between her fingers, and the clothes on her shoulder were quickly dyed red with blood. What's wrong?" Bayun Tian ignored the wound on her forehead and anxiously looked at Yu, who was in pain. I'm fine," Yu said softly, but her pained expression showed just how much pain she was in. Seeing that Bayun Tian and you were both injured, Ming Dong and Duga Feng, who were responsible for protecting them, both changed their expressions. "God damn it!" Ming Dong cursed and said, "The battle above is becoming more and more intense. We can't delay any longer. Let's hurry to the basement." The few of them immediately sped up and hurried to the basement. The battle in the sky was becoming more and more intense. Although the experts of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers, the difference in individual strength between them and the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire was just too great. As a result, the 9 experts were completely suppressed by the 6 experts of the Changyang Prefecture. They were basically powerless to fight back and were forced to use their battle skills. Various Earth-tier battle skills were used by the 9 experts, clashing with the experts from the Changyang clan. The ripples of energy that erupted were so vast that they could shake the surroundings. The surrounding space violently distorted, as if it was about to collapse from the pressure. Although there was an extremely large difference between an Earth-tier battle skill and a Heaven-tier battle skill, an Earth-tier battle skill used by a Heaven Saint Master could not be underestimated, especially when 9 Heaven battle skills were used at the same time. The powerful shockwaves of energy were almost equivalent to several Heaven battle skills clashing with each other, almost equivalent to the sky. Arg! Suddenly, a miserable cry rang out. The miserable and pained voice drowned out the booms of the battle. The entire right arm of one of the experts of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had been chopped off by Chang Wuji. The right arm fell from the sky as blood spurted out like a fountain, dyeing the sky red. Intense killing intent flashed through Chang Wuji's eyes. He took a few steps in the air and chased after the person who constantly retreated. He then stabbed out with lightning speed, directly piercing through the person's chest. Elder Ping Yin, the other expert who was fighting against Chang Wuji, cried out. He immediately charged over in an attempt to save the expert, whose chest had been pierced. Chang Wuji's face turned cold. He pulled out his huge sword from the expert's chest and swung it at the incoming expert as hard as he could. How could the expert, who was only a third cycle Heaven Saint Master, be Chang Wuji's opponent? His saint weapon was struck by Chang Wuji's sword, and the powerful force sent him flying far away. Chang Wuji's face was extremely sunken as killing intent surged in his eyes. How could he not know what was happening in Changyang Prefecture below? However, he was firmly entangled by the two of them, so he could not free himself to save the people below. Chang Wuji's gaze locked onto the expert, whose chest had been pierced again. He took a large stride through the air and rapidly approached the expert. He raised his blade and swung it at the expert's head again. Although he could easily kill his opponent with a heaven-tier battle skill, just the Changyang clan below would not be able to endure it, let alone the consumption of Saint Force. A single heaven-tier battle skill would probably raise the entire clan to the ground. The expert's face immediately changed when he saw the huge sword rapidly approaching him. First, he had lost his right arm, and then his chest had been pierced through. He was already extremely heavily injured, so he was unable to block the thunderous strike at all. His body immediately began to sink. Chang Wuji snorted coldly as a 10-meter-long streak of light shot out from the tip of his sword. It slashed down with lightning-like speed, cleaving the expert's head in half and wiping out his soul. The strongest expert of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had died at Chang Wuji's hands just like that. Elder Ping Yin! A cry rang out. The expert, who had been sent flying by Chang Wuji, just happened to see this and cried out sorrowfully, Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, I'll definitely make you pay a heavy price today. Chang Wuji roared and immediately charged at him with his huge sword. Seeing that Chang Wuji had already killed one person, the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire seemed to have been provoked. Their attacks became even more ruthless. In just a few short exchanges, they had already heavily injured their opponent, causing him to spit out mouthfuls of blood. He was already an arrow at the end of its flight. Bang! Suddenly, a scarlet flower of blood blossomed in the air. Xiao Tian's palm landed on an expert's forehead, and the powerful force directly shattered his opponent's head. The second expert of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had died. We can't beat them, retreat. The deaths of 2 experts in quick succession dealt a huge blow to the other experts of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. One of them gave up on the idea of continuing the fight and immediately yelled out, abandoning his opponent and fleeing outside. If I let you escape, I, Qing Xiaofan, won't have the face to return. His opponent, Qing Xiaofan, sneered. Surging wind elemental energy gathered around him as he quickly chased after the escaping expert. The experts of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom were completely suppressed by their opponents. Although they could preserve their lives for a short period of time, they couldn't hold on for too long. Everyone understood that they had suffered a setback this time and had long lost the courage to continue fighting. Seeing that someone had taken the lead, the others didn't want to fall behind. They all abandoned their opponents and fled outside. After this period of battle, 2 of the 9 of them had died, and the other 7 were all heavily injured. However, their opponents were completely unharmed. If they continued to fight like this, they probably wouldn't even have the strength to escape. You want to leave? Not so easy. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire chased after them relentlessly. With Xiao Tian in the lead, they all chased after them. Only Chang Wuji didn't chase after them because he was worried about the safety of Changyang Prefecture. At this moment, experts who had heard the news rushed over from all directions. They arrived around Chanyang Prefecture and saw a dozen figures fighting intensely in the sky from afar. They couldn't help but be shocked beyond belief. At the peak of the kingdom of Jessen, there were only 10 Heaven Saint Masters on the surface. Including Chang Wuji, who was unknown to outsiders, there were only 11. At this moment, a dozen experts had appeared all of a sudden. This had already surpassed the number of experts the kingdom of Jessen had at its peak. As for Chanyang Prefecture, due to the aftermath of the battle, it had already become a mess. All the houses had collapsed, turning into ruins. The servants and guards had all suffered heavy casualties. Although the group of people from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had fled, the battle in the sky still hadn't stopped. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire all possessed astonishing battle prowess as they chased after the group of people from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Qing Shaofan's wind-attributed saint force allowed him to control the element of wind. His speed was the fastest among the 5, and he quickly caught up to his opponent. Without holding back, he attacked with all his strength, using a high-level Earth-tier battle skill to cut off the head of the heavily injured expert. The expert, who had lost his head, didn't immediately die. Instead, he controlled his head and fled into the distance in panic. In order to kill a Heaven Saint Master, one had to destroy their soul. However, a Heaven Saint Master with only a head left was even more fragile. Not only did he have no battle prowess, but his speed of escape was also much slower. In the blink of an eye, Qing Shaofan had caught up and chopped his head in half. At this moment, the other 4 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire had caught up to the group of people from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. An intense battle once again took place in the sky. The surging waves of energy affected the area below, causing several streets to be heavily damaged. A large number of buildings collapsed as countless people fled into the distance in panic. A few of the unlucky people were directly struck by the shock waves of energy, dying a violent death. After fighting for a while, another expert from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom died to Xiao Tian's hands. His forehead had been pierced by Xiao Tian's sword, and his soul had been wiped out. His corpse directly fell from the sky, landing on the street. The expert who had captured the king and Bai Dao also understood that it would be very difficult for them to leave this place today if they did not do anything. Thinking up to there, he immediately tossed the king and the black-armored Bai Dao far away in different directions. He yelled out, "If you want the king's life, go catch him." The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire had stayed in Chanyang Prefecture for a few days. They had learned many things from their conversations with Chanyang Ba. They all understood the identities of the 2 people. One was the future father-in-law of the imperial protector, while the other was the imperial protector's uncle. Nothing could happen to either of them, so without any hesitation, 2 of the imperial advisors immediately abandoned their opponents to save the king and Bai Dao. The expert did not flee by himself after throwing away the king and Bai Dao's bags. He immediately drew his saint weapon and unleashed an Earth-tier battle skill to save his companion. The other 2 experts, who were free, did not flee by themselves either. Ignoring their injuries, they used the short time their opponents had taken to save the king and Bai Dao to assist their companions in repelling the 3 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire. Afterward, they all used everything they had to flee in a horrible manner. In just a few seconds, the king and Bai Dao had been saved by the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire. One of them was weak, while the other was still unconscious. If they were to fall from the sky like this, they would be heavily injured, even if they managed to survive. "We can't let them escape like this." Luo Tian emotionlessly stared at the people from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. He wanted to immediately chase after them. Xiao Tian stopped Luo Tian's actions and sternly said, "Don't chase after them for now. Sir Imperial Protector won't just let this matter slide. The matter at hand is to return to Chanyang Prefecture to save the people." Yes, saving the people is more important. If something happens to any of the important people, it'll be difficult for us to explain ourselves. Dongyi Junbai agreed. Afterwards, the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Huang kingdom returned to the Changyang clan at the same time, leaving behind the corpses of the 2 experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom on the streets. The battle that had not lasted for long, but it had shaken up the entire Lore City, had finally come to an end. Chapter 476. It was impossible to find a single undamaged house in Changyang Prefecture. The entire place was a complete mess. All the houses and halls had collapsed. Many injured guards moved through the ruins with stiff expressions as they dealt with the corpses of their companions. Their faces were filled with deep sorrow. Today was an unforgettable and tragic day for Changyang Prefecture. The shock waves of energy from the battle between more than 10 Heaven Saint Masters had caused a large number of guards and servants to lose their lives. Countless people had been injured. The casualties were extremely heavy. The entire Changyang Prefecture was filled with a heavy atmosphere of sorrow. The atmosphere was extremely stifling. Chang Wuji slowly walked out of the basement with heavy steps. Compared to before, the expression on his face was much more relaxed now, and he secretly heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Although Changyang Prefecture had suffered heavy losses in this battle, the important figures of the clan had not suffered any losses. Only a few people had been injured, but it was nothing serious. Chang Wuji arrived at the center of Changyang Prefecture. His deep eyes slowly swept through the surroundings. In the end, he let out a long sigh. His face was filled with sorrow. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire also descended from the sky. They stood by Chang Wuji's side. Xiao Tian was the first to ask, "Chang Wuji, how is the situation of the Patriarch and the 4th Madam? Have they been injured?" The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire were most concerned about Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian because they were the parents of the imperial protector. Chang Wuji shook his head and said, "Thank you for your concern, imperial advisor. Although the Patriarch and the 4th Madam have suffered some light injuries, they are fine." With that, the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire could not help but let out a sigh of relief. If anything had happened to Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian, they really would not have been able to explain it to the imperial protector. The secret of the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire in Changyang Prefecture had never been made public. When the people who had come to watch the show saw the Heaven Saint Masters who had just repelled the 10 experts of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom land in Changyang Prefecture, they were all surprised. They began to discuss among themselves. No one had thought that so many Heaven Saint Masters would be hidden in Changyang Prefecture. This force was just too great. Cough, cough. See, Senior Chang Wuji, how is your? The king coughed as he spoke. He would cough up some blood from time to time. Clearly, he had suffered some internal injuries. Your Majesty, don't worry. Princess Glan is fine. Chang Wuji said, That's good, that's good. His Majesty's heart finally calmed down. Yu was the daughter he doted on the most, so he was naturally very concerned about his daughter's safety. Afterwards, the city lord of Lore City and the representatives of the 3 other clans led a few experts from their clans to Changyang Prefecture to express their condolences. They all spoke some words of concern with a pained expression. However, their gazes were mostly focused on the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire. They were all filled with doubt and surprise. The 3 clans of Lore City had all participated in the battle at the northern fort, so they obviously recognized the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire. Now that they saw the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire all gathered in Changyang Prefecture and even helped Changyang Prefecture fend off the invaders, they could not help but feel extremely curious. They wondered what the relationship between the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire and Changyang Prefecture was. However, they did not dare to ask such a question, so they could only keep it to themselves and make wild guesses. The city lord of Lore City and the 3 clans were not in a hurry to leave. Instead, they each sent a portion of their people to help Changyang Prefecture deal with the aftermath. Although Changyang Prefecture had suffered such a calamity and its entire estate had been destroyed, its prestige had not decreased at all. Instead, it was even greater than before. After all, several peak heaven Saint Masters had appeared from Changyang Prefecture this time. They had even repelled the experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, who outnumbered them. Suddenly, a streak of azure light shot through the sky. It rapidly flew from the horizon to Changyang Prefecture with lightning speed. In the blink of an eye, it arrived above Changyang Prefecture and hovered in the air. Another Heaven Saint Master has come. What a fast-flying speed. Many people below noticed the figure in the sky and immediately cried out in surprise. They stared at the sky in bewilderment, not knowing if it was a friend or foe. The 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire and Chang Wuji's expression changed slightly. They immediately raised their heads to look, a sharp light flashing in their eyes. However, when they saw the appearance of the figure in the sky, they simultaneously revealed a trace of joy. The 4th young master has returned. Lord Imperial Protector. The azure figure was Jianqin. After 2 days of non-stop travel, Jianqin had finally returned to Lore City from the Saint Ruler's dwelling. Jianqin hovered in the air, staring blankly at the scene below. His eyes were filled with disbelief. In just a few short days, Changyang Prefecture had undergone such a great change. The originally grand mansion and continuous buildings had all disappeared, leaving behind only ruins and craters riddled with holes, as well as corpses covered in blood. Is this really Changyang Prefecture? Just what has happened? Jianqin stared blankly at the scene below as he muttered to himself. The joy he felt from obtaining the skeleton of a saint ruler was completely washed away in an instant. Jianqin's expression quickly darkened. He slowly descended from the sky, landing in the ruins. Chang Wuji and the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire arrived beside Jianqin at the same time. However, before they could speak, Jianqin spoke first. Changbo, just what has happened here? Why has Changyang Prefecture become like this? Jianqin's voice was filled with urgency, but his face was filled with confusion. He had just returned, so he had no idea what had happened. Why had Changyang Prefecture become like this? Chang Wuji let out a long sigh and said, 4th young master, 10 experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom came to Changyang Prefecture with His Majesty and by Dao. They arrogantly said that they wanted to capture you. In the end, we had a great battle with them in the air, and the shockwaves from the battle have reduced Changyang Prefecture to this. A powerful killing intent erupted from Jianqin when he heard that. Jianqin's eyes immediately became extremely sharp, as if he was a hungry tiger. It was chilling. The temperature in the surroundings rapidly plummeted, making a few weaker people feel like they had suddenly fallen into a cavern of ice. They could not help but shiver. The Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, Jianqin said through gritted teeth. His knuckles cracked from his clenched fists. This time, the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had completely infuriated him. Suddenly, Jianqin seemed to think of something. His face changed slightly, and he asked in a hurry, Changbo, where are my father and mother? Are they all right? The Patriarch and the 4th Madam are both in the basement. They're only slightly injured, said Chang Wuji. As soon as Chang Wuji finished speaking, Jianqin turned into a blur and charged into the basement like a bolt of lightning. The basement was 100 meters underground. It was rather dim, but it was very large. Even if it could hold over 1,000 people, it would not be crowded at all. There were many rooms in there as well. When Jianqin entered the basement, he saw a few upper echelon and guards of Changyang Prefecture making their way out with heavy expressions. 4th young master. A few of the guards recognized Jianqin, so they all bowed. Where's my mother? Jianqin immediately stopped a guard and asked. His gaze was as sharp as a blade, so the guard did not dare to look him in the eye. The 4th Madam is in the largest room, the guard replied in a rather panicked manner. Jianqin immediately ran in and arrived in the largest room in the basement very soon. However, it would be more appropriate to describe this room as a cave. As soon as he entered the room, Jianqin discovered that not only were his parents there, but even his first aunt, Linglong, second aunt, Yu Fengyan, third aunt, Bai Yushuang, and third brother, Changyangku, were all gathered there. They were all in horrible shape. Their clothes were stained with blood, and the fear in their eyes had yet to recede. At the entrance, Mingdong and Dugafeng were acting as guards. The three of them only communicated with their eyes when they saw each other. They did not say anything. "Mother, are you all right?" Jianqin quickly walked over. His face was filled with concern. However, in the next moment, Jianqin's face changed. He stared at the wound on Bai Yuntian's forehead and said with a trembling voice, "Mother, you're injured." "Xiang'er, I'm fine. Check on you quickly. She's very heavily injured." Bai Yuntian did not care about her injuries at all, but she was very concerned about her daughter-in-law. The princess currently lay on the bed with a pale face. She seemed to be in great pain. Jianqin came to the bed and checked the Glen princess injuries. His face became rather stern. The Glen princess' left shoulder had been injured by a piece of rock, and the thumb-sized rock was still lodged in her body. There was also a wound on the left side of her back, which was also caused by a piece of rock. The rock had entered her body and almost injured her heart. It was extremely dangerous. Even her organs had been severely shaken, causing her to bleed internally. "Xiang'er, I know you have the ability to save you, you should quickly save you, Her injuries are very serious," Bai Yuntian whispered to Jianqin. Her face was filled with worry. She was afraid that something bad would happen to the princess. Jianqin nodded and said, "The battle outside has stopped. Mother, you should go out and take a look. I'll save you first." Bai Yuntian and the others did not object. After a few words, they walked out of the basement, leaving only Jianqin and the princess in the room. "Brother, we'll also go out first." Mingdong also pulled Jianqin out of the basement. If it was any other time, Mingdong would definitely use this matter to tease Jianqin. However, with such a thing happening in Changyang Prefecture, Mingdong did not have the mood to do so. After everyone left, Jianqin gently closed the door and slowly walked to the bedside. He looked at the princess, who was lying on the bed with a complicated expression. The princess had only been in Changyang Prefecture for a few days, but she had already suffered such injuries. This made Jianqin feel very apologetic. He felt that he owed her something. Although the princess was heavily injured, she was still conscious. Her limpid eyes had a strange luster as she stared at Jianqin nervously. Her pale face also had a faint layer of red, revealing the shyness of a woman. In her heart, while she was afraid, there was also a hint of joy and anticipation. Chapter 477. Yu closed her eyes and replied softly. However, the way Jianqin addressed her made her feel unhappy and disappointed. The title, Princess of Gran, was given to her by the king. Her real name was Yu. Back when they were in the garden of the kingdom of Jessen, Yu had already made it clear to Jianqin that he could address her by her name. Now that Jianqin addressed her with the word princess, she couldn't help but feel that the relationship between her and Jianqin was still so distant. Jianqin naturally didn't understand Yu's thoughts. He stared at the wound on Yu's shoulder for a moment and muttered to himself. Then he looked into the distance. There was a pair of scissors, gauze, and some top-notch healing medicine prepared. Jianqin picked up a pair of scissors and slowly cut off Yu's clothes. After a series of kacha-kacha sounds, Yu's luxurious robe was cut out in a circle, revealing her white and tender skin. Even a corner of her pink undergarment could be seen. Jianqin could clearly feel Yu's heartbeat quickening. Hence, he explained, "Princess Yu, the crushed stone is still in your body. I have to remove it before I can heal you." Yu closed her eyes tightly as she lay on the bed, not saying a word. However, from her stiff body, one could feel the nervousness in her heart. Feeling the cold sensation from her left shoulder, Yu understood that a corner of her body had been completely exposed to a man's eyes. This caused her cheeks to turn slightly red. Ever since she was born, no man had ever seen her body. Jianchen found some gauze and first wiped away the bloodstains around Yu's wound. Then he slowly placed his palm on the wound. When Jianchen's palm came into contact with Yu's shoulder, Yu's body trembled. Due to her nervousness, her entire body tensed up in an instant. Jianchen sucked in a deep breath. Being so intimate with a girl caused his heart to be far from as calm as it appeared on the surface. However, he quickly calmed down. His eyes were clear as he stared straight at Yu's wound. He said in a low voice, "Princess Yu, I'll suck out the stone from your body. Bear with it." Yu's voice was as soft as a mosquito. Her face was flushed red and she closed her eyes, not daring to look at Jianchen. Jianchen calmed down. He placed his palm on Yu's shoulder and sucked. Along with a painful groan from Princess Gran's throat, a stone covered in blood was sucked out by Jianchen. When the stone was pulled out, fresh blood gushed out from Princess Gran's wound like a fountain. At this moment, Jianchen slowly raised his left hand. A ball of milky white light gathered in his palm. The light grew brighter and brighter. In less than a breath's time, the faint white light turned into a dazzling white light. It illuminated the dark room. Although Yu's eyes were closed, she could still feel the dazzling light outside. She opened her eyes out of curiosity and saw a ball of white light gathering in Jianchen's hand. Seeing this scene, Yu's beautiful eyes opened wide. Her face was filled with disbelief. Although she was not a Radiant Saint Master, she was a princess of a kingdom. She had seen Radiant Saint Force many times. That unique white light was something that almost no power could imitate. Naturally, she could recognize that this was Radiant Saint Force that only Radiant Saint Masters could control. Jianchen's hand slowly pressed down on Yu's shoulder wound. He let the Radiant Saint Force heal the wound on her shoulder. Now that Jianchen was a Class 6 Radiant Saint Master, his Radiant Saint Force had become extremely powerful. His healing ability was also far greater than before. Coupled with the fact that Yu's shoulder wound was only caused by a normal stone, it only took a few seconds for the wound to heal completely. Not even a scar remained. Chanyang Shoten, why, you're actually a Radiant Saint Master as well. Yu stared at Jianchen in shock. She found it difficult to calm down. On the Tianyuan continent, there had never been a person who possessed two abilities at the same time. Not only did he possess great talent for cultivation, but he was also a high-class Radiant Saint Master as well. Jianchen smiled. "Princess Yu, I hope you can keep this a secret for me." Yu stared at Jianchen with a strange light in her eyes. She nodded forcefully, "I will. I definitely won't tell anyone." At that moment, Jianchen's tall figure seemed even more perfect in Yu's heart. "Princess Yu, let me continue healing the wound on your back." Yu hesitated slightly when she heard that, but she still nodded gently in the end. She did not turn down his offer. However, just when she wanted to turn around, she pulled at the wound on her back, causing her face to suddenly pale. Her face was filled with pain. "You better lie down and not move. Let me do it." Jianchen hurriedly stopped Sima Yu's actions and helped the Grand Princess turn her body over. Then, he helped Sima Yu treat the wound on her back. Jianchen and Yu stayed in the basement for 2 whole hours before emerging side by side. With Jianchen's abilities as a Class 6 Radiant Saint Master, he could even save someone on the brink of death. Yu's wounds were no problem at all. He healed Yu effortlessly. Yu had already changed into a new set of clothes, but there was still a trace of shyness on her cheeks. She would secretly glance at Jianchen from time to time. Her eyes rippled with love, accompanied by a trace of shyness. The king and Changyangba, who saw this, revealed a meaningful smile. A few important people of Changyang Prefecture, the city lord of Lore City, and the representatives of the 3 other clans were all gathered there. Jianshin's mother and aunts had all been taken away by the guards to heal, so they did not see Bai Yuntian's figure. After leaving the basement, Jianshin returned to normal. He lost the calmness he had in the basement. He arrived before Changbo with a sunken face and said, "Changbo, how great are our losses?" "Our losses are great. Currently, the death toll is over 200, and the number of injured is uncountable. In addition, there are many guards and servants whose corpses are buried in the rubble. We are still trying to rescue them. As for the buildings, they have all been destroyed." Changbo said with a long sigh. He was very sad. A strong killing intent flickered in Jianshin's eyes. His fists were already tightly clenched. He gritted his teeth and said, "Heavenly Eagle Kingdom, I will definitely not let you off." Heavenly Eagle Kingdom is indeed too arrogant. The king also had an ugly expression on his face. He had been captured by the experts of Heavenly Eagle Kingdom who had broken into the palace. Naturally, he was very angry. "Fourth young master, we found the magical beast you were raising." At this moment, a guard ran out from the rubble with a snow-white little beast in his arms. He quickly walked to Jianshin's side. "White tiger." Jianshin was shocked. He immediately took the white tiger from the guard's arms and carefully examined it. He saw that the white tiger's snow-white fur had already turned gray and was covered in dust. Its eyes were tightly shut, and its stomach was slightly moving up and down rhythmically. It was still sleeping soundly and digesting the medicinal effects. There were no major problems. Seeing that the white tiger was fine, Jianshin finally let out a sigh of relief. When he left a few days ago, he didn't know how dangerous this trip would be, so he didn't bring the white tiger with him. Instead, he fed the white tiger 10 pieces of heavenly and earthly treasures and let it enter a deep sleep to digest the medicinal effects. It still hasn't woken up yet. Changyang Prefecture needs to be rebuilt as soon as possible. "Changbo, you go and arrange this matter," Changyangba said. "Yes, I understand." Changbo nodded. With that, the city lord's eyes lit up. He said, "Patriarch of the Changyang clan, leave the matter of the craftsmen to the city lord's estate. We will gather all the craftsmen in Lore City to rebuild Changyang Prefecture as soon as possible." Chapter 478. Changyangba politely declined the goodwill of the 3 major families of Lore City and the city lord's office. He said, "Changyang Prefecture appreciates your kind intentions. Although Changyang Prefecture has suffered great losses from this disaster, it is still possible for us to build a new residence. In-law, why don't you build the new residence of Changyang Prefecture in the Imperial City? This way it will be more convenient for our 2 families to communicate. This is also more in line with your identity as the Imperial Protector of the Kingdom of Jessen." The King of the Kingdom of Jessen said with a hopeful expression, "If a powerful force like Changyang Prefecture was not kept in the Imperial City, it would be a great loss. If the new residence of Changyang Prefecture was moved to the Imperial City, then the defenses of the Imperial City would be even stronger. Even if something like today happened again, there would be experts who would come to the rescue in time." This, Changyangba hesitated. Although Changyang Prefecture was deeply rooted in Lore City, with the current strength and reputation of Changyang Prefecture, if they really wanted to move to the Imperial City, they would definitely be the most powerful force in the Imperial City. It would not cause too much damage. However, Changyang Prefecture had been rooted in Lore City for many years. If they really wanted to move, it would be a big deal. After all, the reason why Changyang Prefecture had chosen to take root in Lore City was all because of the arrangements of their ancestors. Seeing that Changyangba was moved, Chang Wuji's expression became serious. He said, "Master, this is not acceptable. Changyang Prefecture's location in Lore City was the decision of our master. This place is equivalent to the ancestral residence of Changyang Prefecture. How can we move at will? Chang Wuji's position in Changyang Prefecture was very special. He was also the most senior person in Changyang Prefecture. Even the master of Changyang Prefecture did not dare to ignore his words. Seeing that Chang Wuji was firmly against it, Changyang Ba could only decline the king's invitation. His Majesty the king sighed in his heart and felt very disappointed. How much he wanted to pull Changyang Prefecture into the imperial city. It was a powerful protective force. A group of guards and servants from Changyang Prefecture stayed behind to clean up the ruins. The old man stored all the precious books in the library into his space ring and preserved them perfectly. After all the arrangements were made, Changyang Prefecture booked a few inns nearby as temporary lodgings. At the same time, they summoned all the craftsmen in Lore City to work through the night, gathering over 1,000 craftsmen to work through the night to rebuild the mansion. His Majesty the King also issued an imperial edict, ordering the nearby cities to gather all kinds of precious construction materials and transport them to Lore City. This could be considered as contributing to the construction of the new mansion in Changyang Prefecture. After the imperial edict was issued, His Majesty the King did not stay for long because he was worried about the safety of the imperial palace. He also did not care about the injuries he had suffered and left in a hurry. However, because Jianqin was worried about His Majesty's safety, he specially asked Xiaotian and Qing Xiaofan to accompany His Majesty back. This could be considered as increasing the strength of the imperial palace's protection. The next day, Changyang Prefecture spent a large amount of money to hire over a dozen Radiant Saint Masters from Lore City and the nearby cities. They specialized in healing the injuries of important people who were injured. At the same time, they purchased a large amount of high-quality medicine for the use of the ordinary guards and servants. The space rings worn by the 4 experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom were also confiscated by Changyang Prefecture. They obtained a large amount of treasures from them, including quite a lot of monster cores and money. They even obtained a few high-level Earth tier battle skills. Compared to the losses of Changyang Prefecture, they were not lacking at all. The task of rebuilding Changyang Prefecture was taken over by Changbo of his own accord. He was completely in charge of it, while the others were relatively free. In a room in the inn, Changyang Ba, by Yuntian, Jianqin, and Yu stood in front of the tightly shut door. Through the crack of the door, they could vaguely see traces of white light flickering inside. The 4 of them waited for an hour before the tightly shut door finally opened. 3 white-robed, middle-aged men with frail faces walked out tiredly. These 3 were all Class 4, Radiant Saint Masters from other cities. At the same time, they were also 3 of the 7 most powerful Radiant Saint Masters in the Kingdom of Jessen. The 3 middle-aged men simultaneously bowed to the 4 people standing outside the door and said, "Fourth young master, Patriarch. After the 3 of us did our best to treat him, the injuries of the injured person have stabilized. There are no major problems for the time being. He has already woken up and says he wants to see you. I have troubled the 3 of you." Changyang Ba exchanged some pleasantries with the 3 of them before entering the room. Jianqin, his mother, and Yu followed closely behind him. The person lying on the bed was the black-armored commander of the Black-Armored Army, Bai Dao. However, his sturdy, pitch-black armor had been reduced to tatters, so it was easy to imagine just how heavily injured he was. Although Bai Dao had been treated by the 3 Class 4 Radiant Saint Masters, his injuries were just too heavy. His internal injuries had not completely healed, so his face was pale. Bai Dao clearly let out a sigh of relief when he saw that Jianqin and the others were fine. He opened his mouth slightly and weakly asked, "How's the situation?" They obviously understood what Bai Dao was asking. Changyang Ba replied, "It's all thanks to the assistance of the 5 imperial advisors from the Qin Empire that we managed to repel the experts from the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. We even managed to kill 4 of their experts. The remaining people managed to escape in horrible shape with heavy injuries. However, our Changyang Prefecture was affected by the battle. The entire estate was destroyed, and over 380 guards and servants died. Bai Dao clenched his fists tightly as the light of hatred flickered in his eyes. We must take revenge for this. The people of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom are just too arrogant. They even destroyed a large portion of the imperial palace of the Kingdom of Jesson. Senior Yi Ming was also injured by them. They're coming for us. We're the ones who dragged everyone down. We almost caused His Majesty the King to die. Bai Yuntian's face was full of guilt. Mother, this is all because of me. It's all my fault. Don't worry, I will definitely take revenge. I will make the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom pay an even heavier price, Jianchen said with a rather deep voice. Powerful killing intent flickered in his eyes. Bai Dao looked at Jianchen in admiration and said, Xiangtian, since all of this happened because of you, it's up to you to decide how to deal with the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. However, you can only rely on your own strength for this. The Kingdom of Jesson has just gone through a great battle, so it's weakened. It can't endure any more trouble, so it doesn't have any extra strength to deal with the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Jianchen nodded solemnly. I understand, uncle. I already have a plan for dealing with the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Xiangtian, you need to learn how to use all the resources you have. The Qin Empire allowed you to become the imperial protector because of your talent. Once you have enough strength in the future, the Qin Empire might need you for many things. As a result, you need to make good use of what you can. Don't waste it, Bai Dao said weakly. He was teaching Jianchen as an uncle. His gaze towards Jianchen was filled with gratification. It was the honor of the Bai family to have such an outstanding descendant. Jianchen accepted his uncle's teachings with a humble attitude, but he did not think so inside. He was not as old as he seemed on the surface. He had experienced even more things than Bai Dao, so how could he not think of problems that Bai Dao could think of? A rare sliver of concern appeared in Jianchen's eyes when he saw Bai Dao's pale face. Although he had only learned that he had an uncle when he was 15 and the two of them had not met often, Bai Dao was still his uncle and his mother's brother. No matter what, he was still a relative of his. With a flip of his hand, Jianchen pulled out a white jade bottle from his space ring. He poured out 2 round pills and passed them to Bai Dao. Uncle, these are radiant spirit pills. They can heal your wounds even faster. Bai Dao did not refuse. He accepted the pills from Jianchen with a faint smile and said, Xiangtian, I'll be accepting these 2 pills. These are extremely precious items. They can only be created by Class 5 Radiant Saint Masters. Jianchen's interest was piqued when he heard that. He asked in a hurry, How exactly do you make these radiant spirit pills? It's extremely troublesome to make. It requires the cooperation of a Class 5 Radiant Saint Master and an alchemist. It also requires the assistance of a few extremely precious ingredients. It'll fail if you're careless, so it's very difficult to make a radiant spirit pill. The higher the grade of the pill, the more troublesome it is to make, Bai Dao explained. A gleam of light flickered through Jianchen's eyes. He had already made up his mind that he would definitely find a way to create some radiant spirit pills when he had the time in the future. If he needed them in the future, he could use them to heal without exposing his radiant saint force. After leaving his uncle's room, Jianchen directly went to find Ming Dong and De Gafeng. He said, I'll be leaving for a while, so I'll have to trouble the 2 of you to look after my family. Ming Dong and De Gafeng were not surprised at all when they heard that. It was as if they had already expected this. Are you going to the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom? Ming Dong asked. Jianchen arrived before the window and opened it. He looked at the ruined Chanyang Prefecture and said, No, I'm going to the Qin Imperial Palace. The Qin Empire, Ming Dong cried out. He immediately guessed Jianchen's plan. Brother, don't tell me you're thinking about the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. I will destroy the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom. Jianchen said with a deep voice. The Heavenly Eagle Kingdom had crossed his bottom line. This time, he wanted to make the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom truly disappear from the Tianyuan continent. At the same time, he wanted to use the Qin Empire to intimidate everyone and announce to the world the relationship between the kingdom of Joseon and the Qin Empire. After leaving Mingdong's room, Jianqin immediately summoned Dongyi Junbai, Tianluo, and Chao Kachin. He asked, "Is there a way to locate the kingdom of Joseon through a space gate?" "There is, but if you want to locate it accurately, you'll need to create a sensor," Chao Kachin said. Jianqin's face lit up. He asked, "Do you know how to create a sensor?" "Yes." "Good. Immediately go 10 kilometers outside of Lore City and create a sensor," Jianqin said. "Yes, Sir Imperial Protector." Chao Kachin clasped his hands and immediately left. After Chao Kachin left, only Tianluo and Dongyi Junbai were left in the room. Jianqin looked at the two of them and said solemnly, "Tianluo, Dongyi Junbai, I need to make a trip back to the Qin Empire. The few of you will stay here temporarily to protect Changyang Prefecture, especially my family. Nothing must happen to them. Sir Imperial Protector, we will do our best to protect Changyang Prefecture," the two of them said in unison. Jianqin stood up from his chair and looked at the two of them with a solemn expression. He said, "I, Jianqin, will remember everyone's kindness in my heart. In the future, I will not mistreat everyone." Hearing this, Chao Kachin and Tianluo were overjoyed. The reason why they followed Jianqin from the Qin Empire was because they saw Jianqin's talent. They were certain that Jianqin would soar in the future, so they took this opportunity to get closer to each other. Jianqin's words were like a promise to the two of them. They were overjoyed. Chapter 479. Jianqin left the inn and directly flew out of the city gates. He discovered Chao Kachin fiddling with something 10 kilometers away from the city walls. Jianqin arrived beside Chao Kachin and asked, "How is it? Is the sensor ready?" Chao Kachin held 2 fist-sized crystals in his hands. He inserted one of them into the ground before handing the other to Jianqin. He said, "It's just been done. Imperial Protector, the energy within these 2 crystals is exactly the same. There's a strange connection between them. All you have to do is give this crystal to the person who operates the space gate, and he'll use this crystal to set the other end of the space gate here. However, it's best if you bring a detailed map with you so that you can determine the approximate location faster." Jianqin took the crystal from Chao Kachin and studied it. It was a round, sparkling, translucent ball. It seemed like a transparent glass ball. A strange energy slowly pulsed within it. Jianqin found the energy to be extremely unfamiliar. He had never encountered it before. Jianqin placed the crystal ball into his space ring before returning to Lore City with Chao Kachin. The next morning, Jianqin bid farewell to his family and left the kingdom of Joseon with the sleeping white tiger in his arms. Although Bai Yuntian was extremely reluctant to part with her son, she knew that the matter was simple. All she could do was watch her son leave with tears in her eyes. On the second day after Jianqin left the kingdom of Joseon, 6 pale-faced and dispirited Heaven Saint Masters landed in the imperial palace. They directly entered the discussion hall in the center. The guards of the discussion hall clearly recognized them. After bowing to the 6 of them politely, they immediately ran off to inform the king. The 6 experts did not hold back after entering the discussion hall. They directly sat down on the chairs on the 2 sides. Their faces were all heavy as they sat there silently. The atmosphere was rather oppressive. Soon, a hearty laugh came from outside. "Ha ha ha! I didn't expect seniors to return so quickly. You're even faster than this king had expected. However, how could the kingdom of Joseon withstand the simultaneous attacks of seniors? I wonder if that brat Changyang Shoten has been eliminated. If he's still alive, he'll definitely be a threat to my Heavenly Eagle Kingdom in the future." The king of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom walked in with a smile on his face. From the brilliant smile on his face, one could tell that he was in a very good mood. The 6 powerhouses sat there with pained expressions on their faces, not saying a word. None of them answered the king. The king strode into the discussion hall. At this moment, he discovered that the atmosphere in the hall was a little off. He glanced at the 6 experts on both sides in suspicion, but when he saw their pale faces and dispirited appearances, his heart immediately sank. The smile on his face gradually vanished. From the expressions of the 6 experts, the king of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom could already guess that the outcome of the matter was not what he had imagined. The king's face became stern as he asked, "Seniors, just what happened?" "Sigh." One of the experts sighed at the sky. His face was filled with sorrow as he said, "This time we've really screwed up. Originally, everything was going smoothly. However, when we went to Changyang Prefecture to capture Changyang Shoten, 5 Heaven Saint Masters suddenly charged out of Changyang Prefecture. Every single one of them was extremely powerful. Even when we worked together, we were no match for them. In the end, 4 of us were killed by them. Even the 6 of us were almost unable to make it back. In the end, we had to rely on the hostages in our hands to hold back 2 of them, allowing us to work together and escape." Hearing this, the king of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom was so shocked that he could not speak. He was completely stunned. This outcome was completely different from what he had imagined. He had never imagined that the 10 Heaven Saint Masters of the Heavenly Eagle Kingdom who had rushed to the kingdom of Jessen at the same time would actually end up in such a miserable state. Not only had 4 of them died, but the remaining few had also luckily escaped with their lives. "Your Majesty, we suspect that the 5 powerful Heaven Saint Masters in Changyang Prefecture are the 5 imperial advisors of the Qin Empire. Only they possess such great strength," the red-haired old man said with a heavy voice. His face was extremely ugly. Hearing this, the king seemed to have thought of something. His face changed drastically as he said with a trembling voice, Could it be that the Changyang Prefecture and the Qin Empire have some sort of relationship?" "I hope that our suspicions are wrong," the red-haired old man sighed softly. In the blink of an eye, Jianqin had already left the kingdom of Jessen for several days. After several days of hurrying, he had already traveled close to 100,000 kilometers. In the end, he stopped in a first-class city, Wallerant. Wallerant was located within the Jia Kingdom. It was the place where Jianqin and Qin Shao had first met. He had not seen Qin Shao for half a year, so he could not help but miss him. As a result, he took the opportunity of passing by the Jia Kingdom to take a look. Wallerant had not changed much compared to when Jianqin had first arrived. It was still the same as before. Jianqin walked into the city from the outside. He looked around as he recalled the first time he and Jianqin had come to Wallerant, causing his expression to become rather absent-minded. Unknowingly, Jianqin had already arrived at the entrance of the Tianqin clan's estate. He instinctively walked toward the entrance, but as soon as he approached, he was stopped by the guards at the entrance. "Halt! This is the estate of the Tianqin clan. Unauthorized personnel are prohibited from entering," the guard at the entrance said indifferently as he stared at Jianqin expressionlessly. Jianqin glanced at the guards at the entrance. They were extremely unfamiliar. They were not the same people he had seen the last time he had visited the Tianqin clan, so they did not recognize him. Jianqin stood there and hesitated slightly. In the end, he gave up on the idea of forcing his way in. He said, "I'm looking for Qin Shao. Go inform him." "The young master is not seeing anyone during this period of time. You should come another day," said the guard. Jianqin frowned slightly. Just when he was about to continue speaking, a carriage suddenly rushed over from the end of the street. A banner hung from the carriage, and on the banner was a large Qin character. Very soon, the carriage stopped in front of the Tianqin clan's estate. A woman in a white dress with a veil over her face alighted from the carriage. Although it was impossible to see her appearance, it was not difficult to guess from her figure that she was definitely a beauty that could cause the downfall of nations. As soon as the woman alighted from the carriage, she noticed Jianqin from the corner of her eye. She immediately focused on him, and a sliver of surprise appeared in her watery eyes. She asked uncertainly, "May I ask if this is young Master Gentian?" The woman's voice was extremely pleasant to the ear, like the cry of a skylark. Chapter 480. The second miss of the Tianqin clan gently moved her feet and leisurely arrived before Gentian. Her pair of beautiful eyes stared at Gentian with a strange light as she said, "Young Master Gentian is now a famous person. The title of Mercenary King represents the title of the #1 youth expert. Yet it was so easily obtained by young Master Gentian." The words of the second miss of the Tianqin clan were heard by the guards, and their expressions changed. Their gazes towards Gentian had completely changed, and their hearts were filled with regret. This was especially true for the guard who had just turned Gentian away. Even his face became pale. "Damn it, I never thought that he would be the mercenary King Gentian who obtained this year's mercenary tournament. I actually spoke to him like that just now." Gentian cupped his hands and said with a faint smile, "Second miss is too serious. I was only able to obtain the title of #1 because of a moment of luck. Young Master Gentian is truly modest." The second Miss's pair of bright eyes had a trace of a faint smile. Her gaze towards Gentian carried a bit of admiration as she said, "Young Master Gentian, since you've come to my Tianqin clan, why don't you come in and have a seat?" "That is exactly what I was thinking," Gentian said with a smile. His expression was easygoing without the slightest trace of arrogance. "Young Master, please." The second miss of the Tianqin clan made an inviting gesture, then walked side by side with Gentian into the Tianqin clan. When they passed by the entrance, the second miss looked at the guards with a somewhat reproachful gaze and yelled, "This is young Master Gentian, an important guest of my Tianqin clan. Do not be so rude in the future. Quickly apologize to young Master Gentian." The guards had a panicked expression and hastily knelt down on one knee. They said with a panicked tone, "This lowly one deserves to die. This lowly one deserves to die. Please punish us, young Master Gentian." The guards also knew of the mercenary king's influence. If the head of the Tianqin clan found out that they had just stopped the mercenary king from entering and even had the intention of chasing him away, then they could not imagine just how severe of a punishment they would receive. "Forget it. It's just a small matter. Let's not talk about it." Gentian was not a petty person, and what had just happened could not be more normal. After all, the guards of a few large clans more or less carried a bit of arrogance. Changyang Prefecture was no exception. Gentian followed the second miss into the Tianqin clan, and the news of the mercenary king's arrival had already been reported to the clan head by a guard. As a result, not long after Gentian entered the Tianqin clan's courtyard, Qin Zhao's father personally came to welcome him with the upper echelons of the Tianqin clan. "Ha ha ha! Welcome to my Tianqin clan, little brother Gentian. Little brother Gentian's arrival has truly brought light to my Tianqin clan." The head of the Tianqin clan laughed loudly from a great distance away. His words were extremely respectful. Gentian's identity was different now. Just the title of Mercenary King was enough to make the head of the Tianqin clan treat him completely different from before. Gentian and the head of the Tianqin clan exchanged a few words before being invited to the main hall to be warmly entertained. The news of the Mercenary King's arrival spread through the Tianqin clan very quickly, causing the upper echelons of the clan to rush over. On one hand, they wanted to get acquainted with Gentian, and on the other hand, they wanted to witness the Mercenary King's glory. In a luxurious room within the Tianqin clan, the low growls of men and the soul-stirring moans of women could be heard from time to time. At this moment, an old servant who seemed to be a housekeeper hurried over and said from outside, "Young master, I've just received news that the mercenary king, Gentian, who obtained first place in this year's mercenary tournament, has come to my Tianqin clan." In the room, the young Master Tianjue was on the bed with an extremely beautiful girl. When he heard that, he immediately shivered and became impotent. He cried out, "What? Jianqin has come to my Tianqin clan?" The young Master Tianjue could not help but think back to the conflict he had with Jianqin over a year ago. His face immediately paled. "Jianqin has actually come to my Tianqin clan. He must have come to find me. No, I can't stay here any longer." The young Master Tianjue completely lost the will to continue with the girl under him. Ignoring the girl's resentful gaze, he hurriedly got off the bed and put on his clothes. "Housekeeper Tian, prepare a carriage immediately. I need to leave the city immediately. Remember, don't tell anyone." At this moment, Jianqin was chatting with the upper echelons of the Tianqin clan in the hall. As he was the mercenary king who obtained first place in the mercenary tournament, the upper echelons of the Tianqin clan treated him very politely. They no longer treated him like they did a year ago. In particular, the Tianjue clan took the initiative to apologize to Jianqin for the small misunderstanding between Jianqin and Tianjue. They were extremely sincere. After exchanging some pleasantries, Jianqin entered the main topic. He said to the patriarch of the Tianqin clan, "Patriarch, may I ask where Qin Shao is right now?" "I'm truly sorry. Ever since Shao returned from the mercenary tournament, he went into seclusion with the great elder to cultivate. He still hasn't returned," the patriarch of the Tianqin clan said with regret. At the same time, he secretly rejoiced inside. Jianqin was so close to his son. If his son became the patriarch in the future, the Tianqin clan would gain another powerful ally. This was because there were rumors on the Tian Yuan continent that any mercenary king who obtained first place in the mercenary tournament would become a Heaven Saint Master at the very least if they successfully matured. There was even a very high chance for them to break through to Saint Ruler. Jianqin also became disappointed when he heard that Qin Shao was not present. The main reason he had come to the Tianqin clan was because of Qin Shao. Afterwards, the upper echelons of the Tianqin clan all tried to persuade Jianqin to stay. They hoped that Jianqin could stay a little longer in the clan. At the same time, they sent people to call Qin Shao back. In the end, Jianqin found it difficult to turn down their kindness. He agreed to stay in the Tianqin clan for a day, but he rejected the idea of the Tianqin clan sending people to call Qin Shao back. He did not want to disturb Qin Zhao's cultivation because of him. Jianqin received a warm welcome in the Tianqin clan. They even prepared a banquet for Jianqin at night. After the banquet, Jianqin returned to the room the patriarch of the Tianqin clan had specially prepared for him to receive important guests. At this moment, the white tiger that had always been sleeping in Jianqin's embrace suddenly woke up. It slowly opened its eyes and looked around in suspicion with its bright and pure eyes. Afterward, it leapt onto Jianqin's shoulder and gently rubbed its furry head against Jianqin's face. "Little thing, you've finally woken up after sleeping for so long." Jianqin chuckled as he hugged the white tiger from his shoulder. He sensed the white tiger's energy undulations and discovered that the white tiger's strength had already reached Class 3. "Woo-woo-woo." The white tiger whimpered at Jianqin before sniffing the space ring on Jianqin's finger. Jianqin naturally understood what the white tiger meant. However, what surprised him was that the white tiger's intelligence had clearly increased by a lot. It could actually use such a method to express its need for heavenly resources. As expected of the winged tiger, it really is different from the rest, Jianqin thought to himself. He took out the dragon snake grass, geocentric lotus, amethyst fruit, and 10 other heavenly resources from his space ring and fed them to the white tiger. After ingesting the heavenly resources, the white tiger fell into a deep slumber as usual. Jianqin gently placed the sleeping white tiger on the bed before tidying up the few remaining heavenly resources in his space ring. A sliver of worry appeared on his face as he murmured, "There aren't many heavenly resources left. It's probably only enough for the white tiger to reach Class 4. I need to get some heavenly resources as soon as I have time, or the white tiger's strength will definitely be hindered. The night passed in a hurry. The next morning, Jianqin emerged from his room with the white tiger in his arms. He planned on bidding farewell to the patriarch of the Tianqin clan. When he passed by a garden, he suddenly heard the sound of a zither. The young lady of the Tianqin clan was still sitting in the same pavilion as before, playing her zither. Jianqin could not help but think of the time when he had met the heavenly enchantress in the sacred land of Mercenary City as he listened to the music. The heavenly enchantress was a peerless beauty that reigned supreme in the world. She possessed a beauty that outshone the moon and flowers, enough to make the world pale in comparison. Even Jianqin could not help but sigh in amazement at her beauty. Jianqin arrived in the pavilion and stood quietly behind the young lady. His gaze landed on the zither on the stone table, and a sliver of surprise gradually appeared in his eyes. He had seen the heavenly enchantress in person in the sacred land of Mercenary City. He had also seen the zither the heavenly enchantress held in her arms. The zither the young lady was currently playing was exactly the same as the zither of the demonic cry in the heavenly enchantress' arms. He could not help but feel surprised. Jianqin did not disturb the young lady. He stood there quietly. Very soon, the second miss finished her song. Turning her head to look at Jianqin, she said, "Young master Jianqin, please sit." The second miss of the Tianqin clan was still covered by a veil, so her true appearance could not be seen. Jianqin did not hold back. He walked over to the stone table across from the young lady and sat down. The young lady gently plucked the strings with her slender fingers, causing the zither to produce heavy notes from time to time. However, she looked at Jianqin and said, "According to what I know, young master Jianqin does not know how to play the zither, yet you've been standing behind me for so long. Is there something you need?" Jianqin faintly smiled. "I saw that the zither the young lady used was exactly the same as the one the heavenly enchantress used, so I was extremely curious, which was why I stayed behind. Please forgive me if I've disturbed you." Surprise flashed through the young lady's eyes. She asked, "Has the young master seen the heavenly enchantress before?" "I was fortunate enough to see her in Mercenary City," said Jianqin. The young lady came to a realization and said, "Young master, you've overlooked something. My zither was originally a replica of the zither of the demonic cry, so it's obviously the same as the one the heavenly enchantress used. There are quite a few zither like this in the outside world, and I just happen to have one." "I see. I've been careless." Afterward, Jianqin casually chatted with the young lady before bidding farewell. "Young lady, I will be leaving the Tianqin clan today. Farewell. I hope we can meet again. Farewell." "Are you in such a hurry to leave?" The young lady of the Tianqin clan walked out of the pavilion with her zither and leisurely followed behind Jianqin. She seemed like a well-bred young lady. "I have important matters to attend to and cannot be delayed, so I can't stay here for long," Jianqin replied. After bidding farewell to the young lady, Jianqin went to find the patriarch of the Tianqin clan to bid farewell. Although the patriarch tried his best to keep him, Jianqin was determined to leave. He was unable to keep Jianqin no matter how hard he tried. In the end, he could only bid farewell to Jianqin regretfully. Chapter 481. The great Zhou country was not far from the Tianqin clan. After several hours of flying, Jianqin finally arrived in the great Zhou country. He flew over the great Zhou country's border fortress at an altitude of several thousand meters and flew in the direction of the great Zhou country's imperial capital according to the map. After another 4 hours of flying, Jianqin had already traveled 3,000 kilometers into the great Zhou Empire. He had finally arrived at the imperial capital. This time, because he had a request for the great Zhou Empire, Jianqin did not directly fly into the imperial capital out of courtesy and respect. Instead, he slowly descended in front of the gates. The gates of the imperial capital were guarded day and night. The arrival of a heaven saint master alarmed all the guards. The leader responsible for guarding the gates immediately ran out from the tower and quickly arrived before Genshin. He politely asked, "Senior, I am the captain of the 5th Squad of the Imperial Guard. May I ask how I can be of service to Senior?" As he spoke, the captain curiously studied Genshin. When he saw Genshin's youthful appearance, he could not help but reveal a sliver of surprise. However, he soon realized that Genshin must have used a secret technique to preserve his youthful appearance. This was not his true age at all. "I am the Imperial Advisor of the Qin Empire. I have specially come to visit your esteemed empire. Please report my arrival," Genshin said in a very indifferent tone. The captain was immediately surprised when he heard that the person who had come was the Imperial Advisor of the Qin Empire. He hurriedly replied, "Yes, I will report it immediately. Men, why don't you invite Senior in?" The captain ordered someone to invite Genshin into the Imperial Palace. He then used a movement technique and quickly disappeared from the gates. A visit from any Heaven Saint Master was no small matter, especially when the person was the Imperial Advisor of the Qin Empire. This was no small matter. As a result, the captain did not dare to tarry at all. He ran off to notify the king as quickly as he could. In the great Zhou country's royal palace, in a magnificent palace, there are several gorgeously dressed beautiful girls with heavy makeup, wearing clothes that barely covered their bodies. In front of them, there was a table made of pure gold that was filled with fine wine and delicacies. Wearing a golden dragon robe, the king, who was around 50 years old, was sitting in front of the table in high spirits, enjoying the singing and dancing below. At this moment, a eunuch hurriedly walked in from outside. He directly arrived beside the king and softly whispered something into his ear. Afterwards, the king's face filled with shock. He stared at the eunuch in interest and said, "What did you say?" "An imperial advisor of the Qin Empire has come to visit my great Zhou Empire?" "Yes, your majesty. This was reported to me by the captain of the Imperial Guards." "It can't be false," the eunuch replied. The king immediately stood up from his chair and quickly made his way out of the hall. At the same time, he said, "Come with me to receive the guest. Immediately send someone to invite the imperial advisors over." Genshin was warmly invited to a resplendent hall by the king of the great Zhou Empire. He was warmly received by the king. 5 white-haired old men walked in from outside. As soon as they entered, their gazes all gathered on Genshin. They then walked over to a few chairs and sat down. The king immediately introduced them to Genshin, esteemed imperial advisors of the Qin Empire. "These 5 are the imperial advisors of my great Zhou Empire." Genshin had a faint smile on his face as he cupped his hands towards the 5 old men. Genshin was not unfamiliar with some of these 5 old men. Last time when he followed the people of the Tianqin clan to the great Zhou Empire through the spatial gate to Mercenary City, he had seen them before. The 5 imperial advisors of the great Zhou Empire also cupped their hands and greeted Genshin with a friendly expression. After both sides exchanged a few words, one of the imperial advisors opened his mouth and said, "For the Qin Empire's imperial advisor to come to my great Zhou Empire, this is my great Zhou Empire's honor. However, this is not a small matter. I wonder if your distinguished self has anything that can prove your identity." Genshin gave a faint smile. He knew that the other side was doubting his identity. After all, the Qin Empire was too far away from here. For an imperial advisor of the Qin Empire to suddenly visit the great Zhou Empire, it was very suspicious. Genshin pulled out a purple jade pendant from his space ring and tossed it to the old man who had spoken. He said, "I wonder if this can prove my identity." The old man caught the jade pendant and studied it. The pendant was extremely exquisite. It was engraved with the flag of the Qin Empire. On the front was a large Qin character, while on the back was a large Hu character. However, when the old man discovered the material of the pendant, his eyes could not help but flash with light. He cried out, "This is actually an amethyst soul." Hearing this, the other four imperial teachers and the king of the great Zhou country all revealed looks of shock. They naturally knew what the purple crystal soul essence was. It was a very rare top-grade jade that was priceless and very rare. It was something that couldn't be bought with money. It was said that the amethyst soul was condensed from the purple qi of the world. It was extremely precious and rarely seen on the Tianyuan continent. The imperial advisors and the king firmly believed Jianqin's identity when they saw that the identity medallion was actually made from the extremely precious amethyst soul. However, they were still secretly amazed. They thought to themselves, the Qin Empire really is one of the 8 great kingdoms of the continent. Even the identity medallion of an imperial advisor is completely made from amethyst soul. However, they were not people of the Qin Empire after all. Coupled with the fact that they were very far away from the Qin Empire, they did not have a very good understanding of the situation in the Qin Empire. Little did they know that the identity medallion of the Qin Empire's imperial advisors was only a golden medallion made from a rare metal and not a purple jade pendant made from amethyst soul. There was also no Hu character on the back. Even in the entire Qin Empire, only 5 people had the right to wear a medallion that was completely made from amethyst soul. The imperial advisor returned the jade pendant to Jianqin and said with a faint smile, "We are very sorry for our rude behavior from before. We hope that the imperial advisor will not take it to heart." After his identity was confirmed, everyone treated Jianqin even more kindly. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Jianqin shifted the topic to the main topic. He said, "I've come to visit your country today because I want to borrow your country's space gate. I wonder if that's possible." Of course it is convenient. We can open the space gate for the imperial advisor at any time. The king agreed to Jianqin's invitation without any hesitation. Then he hesitated for a moment before adding, "Although our great Zhou Empire is very far away from the Qin Empire, we also hope to become allies with the Qin Empire. I hope that the imperial advisor can pass on our intentions to the Qin Empire's king." "I will definitely pass on these words." Jianqin also agreed to the great Zhou Empire's request because in this area he found that only the great Zhou Empire had a space gate. In the future, he might have to use the great Zhou Empire's space gate to go to the Qin Empire. So naturally their relationship couldn't be too stiff. After that, Jianqin followed the great Zhou Empire's king to the palace where the space gate was set. The space gate was an array carved into the ground. It contained the mysteries of space and was very complicated. One of the state preceptors immediately took out a few Class 5 magic cores from his ring and threw them into the holes around the spatial gate. With the supply of energy, the array diagram immediately lit up and a surge of energy emanated from the array diagram. Finally, it condensed into a 3-meter-wide gate. The scenery inside the gate was blurry and nothing could be seen clearly. "Imperial advisor, I wonder where you're going." The great Zhou Empire's imperial advisor controlling the space gate said to Jianqin. The Qin Empire, the great Zhou Empire's imperial advisor, looked at the map. After finding the location, he quickly controlled the space gate. Very soon, the chaotic scenery inside the space gate gradually became clear. It was a continuous stretch of mountains. Because there are no markings, we can't determine the exact location of the Qin Empire. We can only set the other end of the space gate to an approximate location. Even if it isn't within the Qin Empire, it shouldn't be far from the Qin Empire. "Imperial advisor, you can go now." The old man controlling the space gate said, "In the future, I will definitely pay you a visit to thank you." Jianqin said this and then directly walked in. In a short step, he crossed over 1,000,000 miles. After Jianqin came out of the space gate, the space gate behind him slowly disappeared. The space behind him quickly returned to its original state. Jianqin looked around and found that he was standing on a flat mountain peak. All around him were continuous mountains. Jianqin took out a map and looked at it for a while. He then used the sun and the sky to determine the approximate location before flying away. Half a day later, Jianqin finally arrived at the imperial palace of the Qin Empire. He directly landed in the imperial palace. As soon as he landed, the surrounding soldiers quickly surrounded him with killing intent. At the same time, several powerful auras appeared from various parts of the imperial palace. Several heaven saint masters flew over from the distance with hostility. They quickly surrounded Jianqin. However, when they saw the appearance of the person who had come, they were slightly stunned. They then clasped their hands together. Greetings to Sir Imperial Protector. At this moment, the surrounding soldiers also discovered Jianqin's identity. The killing intent they gave off instantly disappeared. Several hundred people simultaneously knelt on one knee and loudly said, "Greetings to Sir Imperial Protector." These were all elite soldiers. Every single one of them possessed extraordinary strength. When several hundred people's voices overlapped, it was like a rumbling thunder. The sound shook the sky and spread throughout the entire imperial palace. Jianqin made the several hundred soldiers stand up. He then turned his head to look at the several heaven saint masters in front of him in confusion. He asked, "What happened to you all just now? Did something happen in the Qin Empire? Why were you so nervous?" "State Protector, there is something you do not know. Flying is forbidden within the Qin Huang Kingdom's imperial palace. Even we have to go through the palace gates to enter. When we saw someone flying in from outside, we thought it was a provocation," one of the state protectors said. Jianqin came to a sudden realization. He hadn't spent much time in the Qin Empire's imperial palace, so he naturally didn't know about these rules. "You all can disperse. I still have matters to attend to, so I'll go find the king first." With that, Jianqin directly left.